period, because I want to be on the wife's go list, right? She's going to have a list of, I don't like it when you hang out with these streamers because they don't respect me. But she's going to be like, you welcome to hang out with Jay because he thinks about my needs. So go ahead, James, and then we're gonna let this married man get out of here so I'm not on the bad list.
So I was going to say, I love, yeah, we don't want to be on the bad list.
Got to strategize, y'all. Got to think long term up in here.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
So James, you said you had something to say?
So I love the way that there's this spider web of networked personalities and community on YouTube. That we jump over to each other's channel and we support each other and we give shout outs to each other and this whole it's like a lifeline to so many people because you affect these people and then they carry the wisdom and the knowledge that they've learned from you with true gnosis, right?
Yeah.
They carry that. they carry that over to where they're at, and it spreads out from them, right? And paying it forward. And so, do you know who Ryan is? Rion. She's one of the people that sometimes stop into your chat stream. She's
the name sounds familiar.
So she's over at like Skeptic Haven, and they used to be called something else, but they're a lesser hub. Like you're like the main hub in our whole network. And then they're like a secondary hub that's connected to a whole bunch of other networks. So they were saying if you ever might want to, they would love to have you on there to talk about your insights. So like some of what you shared here tonight. So
absolutely, I'd love to.
And Derek,
right.
This is the golden age of YouTube. It really is.
I dropped the link right there in. Yeah, we're building something, and
100%,
100%.
Yes,
100%.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my role.
I want more people. I don't know if they realize how easy this is to make. By the way, to make a YouTube channel is actually pretty simple. Now, if you want to make complex stuff, you want to do what Jay's doing, flipping between screens. You got to know what you're doing.
Right.
Like, you don't have to do that. There are people who just sit in front of their camera,
absolutely,
and they just go, let me tell you why God does not make sense, or whatever.
Right.
Talk about why you're not a theist, or why Jesus doesn't make sense, or why Christianity is not true, or let me show you contradiction. Whatever, simple stuff. And if every person who's a fan watching and stuff like that was interested in producing something, your face doesn't have to show up. Just the algorithm gods, so to speak. YouTube will see. This is a community that we need to really promote. And so YouTube will randomly pick a video that's hot because the more people who are into it, they'll promote it and get it more exposure.
Right.
And if you want to make damage, meaning you actually want to make changes happen and get people thinking about the stuff, we need to make the topic more appear on YouTube more often. And it's not just from one angle, because some stuff's so critical that they're not getting like the praise from YouTube. I'll give you an example. Apostate Prophet. He speaks all about Islam.
Yeah, so good.
But he has not, he's like 360,000 subs, and he has not received a 100K plaque from YouTube.
Wow.
Because it's such controversial material, and he's so...
And I want to be clear about this real quick. This happens to a lot of content creators. I've been finding it. It's not just in our community. This happens with, I know of a woman who does computer stuff and fixes stuff because her boobs are too big. And so she's got big boobs and she's sexy looking. And even though she makes a lot of the best videos on stuff, you can type in something that she'll make a video of. And all of the people who take her videos, make clone videos, and then have way smaller feed and all that will pop up way before her. Right, because the algorithm don't like her. This is a real thing that happens to people, and so it's not a conspiracy theory. YouTube is a business, and they have a model, and they get to say, based on comparable size and comparable engagement, we get to decide who goes up and who goes down, and if we decide certain channels seem to be less risk, and the only way to get through this, you've got to break through it. You've got to say, we've got so much viewers and so much engagement, and we're driving so many ad dollars. They go, well, we got to just push them up in the algorithm because at this point we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
A lot of his videos aren't getting ads.
Right.
Because they're so controversial that, like, mind you, YouTube's not the one putting the ads. YouTube is facilitating the content, but the advertisers are bidding for what kind of content they want to put their ads on. And if they find that content is not, and YouTube will like screen it, they don't think that the content is kosher, so to speak, for their advertisers, they will demonetize the video. If you do it bad enough, this is why a lot of people don't realize, but David Wood, the Christian apologist who was doing constant responses to Islamic material, and he's like always arguing with Muslims and arguing against Islam, he gave his YouTube channel away and started a whole new one because that channel technically is cursed by the standards of YouTube. They are demonetized. He can't make any money from that channel. The only thing he can use it for is like, I have 700,000 subs. He has a huge
so he can
base.
get super chats and whatever else.
No, you can't make money through the channel.
Oh, they demonetized the entire channel. They pulled them. So guys, this means you're over the thresholds. You've met all the benchmarks, but YouTube has just decided, we don't want you in the partner program. See you later. Right?
That's it. Yes. And my point is because it's so controversial. So now he's having to start a whole another channel. He's avoiding the topics and titles. They're saying stuff like, I'm a child molester Muhammad with 9-year-old Aisha. Like really blunt topics and titles that are like demonetizing his channel. And so if you want to be able to get a larger audience and you want to grab people's attention, you got to be very clever. And you have to find ways to also approach it sensitive through YouTube. Now, if you want to publish in your own website and you want to like make private videos that aren't going to make it on, do it that way and steer people to your website. But you got to be very cautious with YouTube.
And guys, this is even what David Pakman, a liberal news commentator, does, right? Because a lot of his stuff gets demonetized just because he's covering Trumplicans or whatever. And so he's pushed people Patreon, but most importantly, website memberships, because that's where YouTube isn't taking a third of the super chat or whatever it is, right? And Twitch isn't taking, their money off the top. It's more direct. This is why I keep telling people, your Patreon's the place to go. I recently joined Erica's Patreon, right? Like, because that's where our creators get to say, here's my space. They can't take this from me.
There's actually been on Patreon.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The websites are even over Patreon, right? Because people have said Patreon takes a lot, and that's why Pakman goes, my website. Go ahead.
I'm saying there have been accounts people have had on Patreon that have been canceled by
Same
Patreon.
thing.
There's like a
levels to this. Yeah.
And so that's why I haven't had the time to do it, but I was almost like, all right, how do I get my website to a point where it's a machine, it's active, it's doing everything I needed to do, and there's a membership program through that where people can come. I'm already doing this with the courses I'm about to be launching.
Let me chat with you, bro. I think Restream could be a big help. They're a little bit more premium in terms of their pricing, but they let you go live to all platforms. So right now, I'm live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. All at once, right? Now, that doesn't matter to me because everybody watches me on YouTube. I got a couple of Twitch friends, so it doesn't matter. But somebody with social media presence like yourself, right, that can make a big difference because you're popping up right there. But they also have these services that allow you to pipe it right into your Patreon or right into your website. And that's where I really want to go. I really want people to just go to jbundy.com because on YouTube, I got to go, well, I got a channel, I got to do stuff with Tux, and I really want to split that with Tux, and then I do Hot Program, I want Black Friend, I want to split that with him, and then I've got my own channel, and the Blase and the Glavinoids. I want people to just be able to go jbundy.com, send me your money, watch all my stuff in one place, right? I can do that on Twitch, but there's no monetization for me there. I had to leave the affiliate program, same thing, because they restrict your stuff. You're not allowed to stream the same thing on Twitch and YouTube simultaneously. So even though I was above Twitch's monetization threshold, I had to send an email to Twitch, politely remove me from your affiliate program because I can't multi-stream. So my point is to say I'd love to chat with you about these things. I know you're going to show me a lot. I'd love to help you take advantage of maybe multi-streaming and being able to stream directly to your website because that could help you get towards, where you want to do with your website and stuff. So, of course, we're trying to help each other.
Yeah. In the meantime, it really got me rethinking my whole strategy for YouTube and social media.
If you want to get more attention, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes
also,
people
Derek,
have
make videos about this stuff, because if you say this stuff on your YouTube videos, one, you'll be educating your audience as to the realities that you deal with. People will listen to it, and it'll make it that much easier for the rest of us, because people say, I've heard Derek talk about this. I know this is the reality. If us small streamers who people are hardly supporting start saying this stuff, people it's going to sound like we're just whining and crying. But when you are giving people, hey, I'm a pro, I'm doing this for a long time, let me tell you guys how I see it, let me show you some of these examples, pull up those channels and show people, I think it would go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope people would take the scholarship route a little more serious, because that's not going to get you demonetized or get you in trouble, because you're actually you're going down a smart path. And people they want proper education to be out there. That's why Flat Earth got really like shadow banned, so to speak. Like, they really shut down the exposure Flat Earthers were getting, because it was like a virus, honestly. Conspiracy thinking it went like a virus. And they were like purposely shutting that stuff down. But if you're educating people, debunking it, or you're showing proper science, or you're showing education,
right,
you're going to get more. Typically, not always, but you're going to be safe. I'll put it that way. You're going to be safe no matter what your approach is. So,
it's also why I try to build community, and like, just to plug our other channel, the Casino Theater and Arcade. What we're doing over there is, I just, at the end of these long streams, I go over there, I chill for a couple hours. We're watching competitive gaming or racing, just something random and fun, and then I go to sleep. And the people are just enjoying the chat, gambling away their channel points. But the idea is, it's a neutral space, right? We're not going, oh, you're a theist, you're dumb. We're going, whoa, it doesn't matter now, because we're just, everybody could like Street Fighter, right? You know, we could all get along with Street Fighter, right? And then what happens is, it's putting in all this algorithm time. I get the watch time and the views and all of that stuff. And it is going to get demonetized, because for the most part, we're playing other people's stuff. But when it gets to the point that it's viewer supported and there's more community around it, it's not controversial. It's not, and so it'll build in. And so that's why I even tell people like James, do more of your health and wellness stuff. Cameron Bennett, do more of your fitness stuff, because that's the stuff that actually YouTube recognizes as valid content category, like gaming, right? We know what to do with a gaming stream, right? So I didn't want them to have to look at this and say, well, it's a gaming stream, but then he's also yelling and cursing and making fun of people's religion. I'd rather them say, okay, well, we'll put that over here in the backwoods. Oh, but if he's a popular gaming streamer, well, yeah, that's fine, right? And so that's kind of what we're trying to put people on to understanding these things.
My tips, if I could give you one to help you really grow, I know you could get some really growth. Like, the one thing that drew me to you was that I found you because Guts at Gibbon was talking about, look at this guy, 2-time PhD. He knows he's a scientist, right? And you've got that badass camera. Sure. Man, look, this is what I would do. Grab that camera.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
you can do it live if you feel like you want the community.
Yeah, I like live.
Whatever. But don't even focus on the community. Be like, listen, you're going to have to just be here. You're an observer. I'm going to film this, whatever.
Right.
Because a lot of people, you're going to get way more views if you do this.
Okay, all right, I'm listening.
You record yourself and you say something like, here, I'm starting a series on why we know human evolution is true. That's right. We came from previous species. Okay. And speciation has happened. I'm going to show you and explain to you why evolution is the case. Or like short, sweet 5 to 10 minute video, high quality with your camera.
And start a series of them. Just run them. Just start them running together.
And just say, I'm going to rip apart all of the nonsense that people act like.
I love it.
Animals have not transitioned to different species and stuff. I'm going to explain to you how we know that evolution is a fact. And in science, we'll just call that a theory, which is the highest you can go in terms of something making sense. So you're going to explain that, and then boom, put it out there. Here it is. Launch it like as its own video. Create a thumbnail. Create a title. Create a description.
Create a little
Here's part one to a series of videos debunking creationism and showing how evolution is true. Okay, and call it whatever you want. Right. Make it a series, and then create a thumbnail. Yep. Put some tags. The keyword: human evolution or evolution. Right. And boom, that's it. And then post it. Yeah. And like do a 10-part series or a 15-part series. Post those, launch it.
We would it.
And watch the algorithm pick it up. And it starts to get, then there's people like Guts at Gimmon who are like playing a clip from it. And this guy Jay. Then there's me going, did you hear what Jay just said? I don't think you caught that.
Okay.
And I'm playing a clip of it. And everyone's steering people to your channel. That's like hoping, fingers crossed, others,
Right. This is making it go.
The YouTube gods are like, this is an educational video about human evolution.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden that's got 10,000 views.
Yes.
Like, how
because
the hell did
and just a couple things to touch on. One, I constantly tell my community this. I love the fact that you guys watch my 8-hour streams. That tells YouTube whatever I'm doing it well. They like, he don't have the largest community, but whatever he doing, they be there. Go ahead, Tux.
11 hours and 55 minutes.
11 hours, 12 hour streams. We don't want to brag around here, but we but I do tell them it's not very discoverable. Because if you said to somebody, I think you should. We got a bot to get on. We got a bot. Get on the bot. Sorry, we got a sex bot. Come on, guys. We got mods. Get on the sex bot. I
blocked those. I don't know why the hell they.
So the thing that hang on. All right. So the thing I was gonna say is I tell them, right? Because if you sent them, hey, I think you should check out this J guy. Here's a 12-hour stream. They're not even going to pull it up. They're going to go, you're a jerk. I hate you, and never send me a YouTube recommendation again, because that's awful. If you send them a 5-minute video that they like, that will bring them to the channel. Subscribe.
So your growth too. Like you're growing slow because you're doing long live streams.
Right.
I'm just telling you,
I'm being honest. Yep, I totally agree.
You got the watch time. You could be monetized right now. You're way past, what is it, 3,000 or 4,000 minute?
View hours or whatever.
You're way past that.
Right. So now's the discovery videos. How do we get you
from 300 subs to 30,000?
Yes.
And the way that you do that is you need organized, and you need it to be organized.
Yes.
Concise. Maybe script it, have your
Yep. We've been working on scripted videos. Yep.
And like, just be like, I'm going to show you why evolution is the case.
Absolutely.
I'm a scientist. My name is so-and-so. Here's the university. And then when you're done, edit it somewhat. Right. You don't have to go above and beyond, but edit it. Put the visual of the college and the laboratory you worked out. And let them know you're not a joke. Like, here's pictures of me.
Me and my advisor were talking about even doing it out of character. I'm Dr. J. Bundy, here to whoop your ass on some real shit, right? Just very serious, then we do the other fun stuff when we're not doing this. The other thing I'll say is I've said this to the community because we've criticized some theists who do this. Basically, they'll set up, they'll go live, and there'll be a couple hundred people in their chat, right? Mostly, a lot of times, people on the opposite side trying to flame them. And they will ignore that, and they'll just make this video where they disregard what's going on in the live chat. And I go, that person's being incredibly smart right now. Because what they realize is they're making their video 10 questions atheists can't respond to. Now, should they really distract themselves from presenting this really nice video to the dozens of thousands, the 35 to 50,000 people who are going to watch it later, just so they can acknowledge the 7 trolls that are going to try to tell them that single thing that's coming out of their mouth is wrong? No, that's an awful video, and the 35,000 people they're making it for will not want to watch that. So instead, they make it as a bonus time. They let you guys sit there and yell at them. They record their video, they edit it, they upload it, and they let the algorithm reward them for recording it live and the whole thing, but then they're making that scripted video. So we've been trying to get people ready to do more of this.
Yeah, work on it, keep doing it. You might figure something else out that I haven't, because you guys are doing things different. But sometimes in my streams, I will address the troll in the chat to make it more fun.
Right.
And it's not like I don't dwell on them, but I'll make a point in the middle of it and be like, Timmy Bob in the chat seems like he needs to read the book I just recommended. Yeah. Timmy. And I'll give him give the idiot in the chat prize right here, because they're just not listening. They're in the chat. They're not there to learn. They're not there to listen. They're there to
right.
And this is one thing. Otangelo's in the chat. Otangelo would jump into the damn chat and go, Shroud of Turin, right. Literally, endlessly. So, I mean, I'm not kidding. Everybody knows this.
I literally streamed my meeting with my advisor today. Like I'm meeting with my advisor. He's the head of the freaking department. And Otangela's going, everything this guy is saying is nonsense. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm not even going to repeat it to him, Otangela, because I don't want you to get shredded by the head of the department right now. Let's just, I'm going to protect your ego by ignoring your comment.
Right.
Yeah, I just think, in fact, if it weren't for Otangela, though, I wouldn't have looked at two of the historians. One academic is Andrew Casper down in Florida, and then another one is, of course, Andrea Nicolotti. He's debated some of these, what they call syndenologists, people who literally go out of their way to try and prove that the shroud is the burial cloth of Jesus, or they're making arguments to try and prove the carbon dating is wrong back in the 80s. Like, they're always finding a way to make it true somehow, or there's a chance. And if there's a chance, this might be it.
Right.
Like, I go to Nicolotti and others, and I just did a one-stop shop because he speaks Italian. And I had Andrew Casper translate the whole episode. And I didn't want to get lost in endless rabbit trail discussion. I had to just be point blank. Is this really Jesus' burial cloth, right? And then, of course, Andrea Nicolotti goes, no, that's common sense. But, let me explain to you why. And he goes into the arguments. Let me see something here. I almost want to play just the beginning of the show.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. At this point, if you staying, it's not me. He's going to have to say, Jay excused me. Honey, Jay excused me. And I just wanted to hang out with the cool kids and the late night crew. So.
Okay, so how do I share my screen? Do I just
it should, there's just a share screen thing back there, and then I'll add it.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Boom.
All right, are we there yet? Here we are. Let me know if you can hear this or if I shared it right.
Oh, I can't hear it. We always have this thing where we can't hear when people share.
So add source. That might be better. Let me stop screen share. Let me add source. See if that. No, that doesn't do that. Let me try this.
Yeah, it's so
Chrome
weird.
tab. That's what it is. Here it is.
So don't share the tab. I think. Yeah. Tab. The Chrome tab. It. Yeah. Try that.
Yeah. All right. So we're here. Now you just gotta.
All right. Add it. Yep.
All right. So this was the one I did, and don't worry, nothing in here will ding your video.
Okay. Is the Shroud of Turin fake, or is that really the shroud that was housing the body of Jesus from the first century? Today, an expert historian on this topic discusses with MythVision that very question. If you've been harassed...
By the way, this guy actually lives, his office right now where he lives is 100 feet from where they house the Shroud of Turin. This guy is an expert, but nothing he says will phase the cognitive dissonance. But anyway, look at how... This was for you, Otangelo. When I was annoyed, this is for you, brother. I hope you feel special.
Vision, that very question. If you've been harassed by multiple Christian apologists, shoving the Shroud of Turin down your throat, telling you it is authentic and you better realize it, well, give them this video because they could use a dose of reality when it comes to the history of relics in the church. Pay attention closely as Dr. Nicolotti actually exposes these ideas, and let's get his book out there for more people to check it out.
I got to defeat Leviathan. Here we go.
We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Lambert. Today we're talking about the Shroud of Turin. One of the big questions is it authentic? Is this really the shroud that goes back to Jesus? A lot of you want to know the answer to that question. We have a lot of apologists that love to come and harass this question in the chat against people, and this debate has been going on for a long time.
No, he's an expert because he studied the history of all of this.
We're just saying it's nice that he has easy access.
Dude.
Yeah, the point I'm making is this guy knows more about the shroud. He's forgotten more than you will ever know about the shroud and every relic in the church. So I would like
it's tough.
This is the kind of irritating things that happen is I know more. I'm talking to syndenologists and things like that. And it's no. speak to historians who know in history about how people are saying this very shroud, the one that you think is from Jesus in the first century, is a forged or a created thing.
Right.
Like in history. Now, here's the deal, though. Guess what, Jay? Guess what, Tux? Guess what, James?
Doesn't matter.
We can't know exactly how they made it. Therefore, miracle.
Well, yeah, if you don't have 100% certainty, then you don't know a goddamn thing.
The fact that it came 1,100 years after Jesus died, ish.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we can prove that it...
Go ahead, James.
Like, I wish we could prove it was the Shroud of Jesus. I'm taking the opposite approach that other atheists are taking. I wish we could prove it was, because it is clearly the image of an old guy, right? So if
he's not 30,
right? He didn't get killed when he was 30-something. If he's living old enough to leave that imprint on that shroud. And not only that, but that kind of physical aging is a degradation. It's a corruption of the flesh.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want Derek to be right. Jesus is historical. Then James is right. The Shroud of Turin is his burial cloth. And the next thing is we're going to find that tomb. We're going to find it. The stone is still going to be there. We're going to actually roll away the stone. And sure enough, right up in there, somehow or another, is going to be Jesus H. Christ himself, Jesus of Nazareth, the one and only. We're going to pop some bottles and finally call it a day.
Hey, this is interesting. Otangelo talks about this debate, right? We emailed back and forth. I was trying to set up a debate actually on my channel with one of these syndenologists, right? Let's have.
What does that even mean, Derek? You're using terms for types of experts I've never even heard of. This
Honestly,
is what I'm telling you.
I don't know the technical term for syndenologist. I just know that it's used for those who believe in the shroud as some form of it being actually the authentic shroud. I mean, they're like apologists for the shroud, practically. That's all I know.
Oh, okay. And Otangelo said his expert is willing to debate your expert. Oh, right. We'd love that.
So let me read you what Andrea Nicolotti, who's that guy that I said, who's an expert on this and knows the history, wrote a book on this.
Right.
Dear Derek, Paolo, Polo di Lazzaro, is one of the main supporters of the theory that the image of the shroud was formed with ultraviolet radiations. Although he never draws the conclusions of his reasoning, the theory serves to make believe that the resurrected Jesus Christ emitted a beam of ultraviolet radiations. Palo pretends to be super partes, I don't know, which I find very hypocritical. But in reality, he is a supporter of the authenticity of the shroud. And for this reason, he has become an authority in the International Center of Study on the Shroud of the Diocese of Turin. And therefore, due to his position, occupies a lot of space in the media. Obviously, he always disagrees with me and is also the author of inelegant attempts to discredit my work. I, in turn, have certainly not neglected to mock his work, pages 474 to 474 of my book. It's the same pages, but anyway.
Good for him.
The experiments to reproduce the resurrection in the laboratory always makes me laugh. But when physicists talks about the shroud, unfortunately, people believe them because their language is apparently scientific. Good summer. So I responded and just said, like, here was my conversation with them, trying to make this happen. Here's the screenshots. With Palo, if I'm saying the name right, Andrea says, Dear Derek, Palo di Lazzaro is right. Maybe I should read Palo's response so you guys are at least up to speed. Mr. Derek, nice to read you. With the title you proposed, I think there will be no debate at all. Historian Professor Nicolotti will list several historical reasons and clues why the Shroud of Turin was created in the 1300s. As a physicist, I will explain the properties of the image that make the hypothesis that a medieval craftsman was capable of making an image like the shroud implausible. Each will speak in his own field of expertise without invading the field of the other, and each will remain of his own opinion, including the listeners who will listen yet another confirmation between skeptics and authenticists. Boring and without any synthesis, a dialogue of the deaf. I have discussed this issue in some emails with Otangelo, who will be able to summarize to you the terms of my perplexity about the usefulness of a non-debate. Conversely, you try reading a critical review of mine on the scientific part of Nicolotti's history book. Here's the link. If Nicolotti agrees to talk about his scientific jibes inserted in a history book, then we will have fun. There will be a real debate because we will be talking about the very same topic. I doubt Nicolotti will have the courage to do that, but it's worth a try. All the best. I said, thanks for the reply. I was under the impression, this is my response to that guy. I was under the impression, or girl, I'm not sure who that is. I was under the impression that the debate would center around finding out the historical dating of the shroud. I will need to read your response at some point. Suppose the medieval craftsman or whoever couldn't produce the shroud, then who's to say they didn't put a real body in the shroud in that period? Or who in the first century could have produced a relic like the shroud? Because my point is, you're assuming that something supernatural happened. I mean, let's pretend that you went back to the first century. Can anyone produce this in the first century, let alone the medieval period? In what way can we establish the facts of dating the shroud apart from the historical written accounts and the already carbon-dated material? One would have to throw out all the carbon dating methods, disregard the historical accounts, and assume a miraculous proposition, which seems the most improbable. Am I wrong? If so, in what way do you establish this is the fact, or this is in fact a first century shroud that literally housed Jesus? So I was already kind of jabbing in a sense, like, what do you say to this? And then Andrea wrote me after I screenshot that and sent it and says, Dear Derek, Pelo Di Lazaro is right to say there is no debate between him and me. Also because I find this way of debating aggressive. Anyway, I do not believe that the scientific nature of a statement can be decided in the debate.
There you go.
As for my courage, that is precisely what Pelo lacks. The courage to say that he supports the authenticity of the shroud and the presence of Jesus Christ inside it. He merely states the nonsense that a medieval artist cannot produce that image. But if a medieval artist can't do it, he couldn't do it either. A first century AD artist or even a 10th century BC artist. Pelo's argument is that the image of the shroud on the shroud is not feasible by a human being on the basis of unverified statements regarding the type of image which he presents as certain but instead are not certain at all. And he states that the only way discovered so far to make such an image is ultraviolet radiation generated by a machine that did not exist before the 20th century. And therefore, in practice, he excludes that any human being had the possibility to create the image on the shroud. If no human being can have made the shroud, then who made it? ? Answer obvious, but not said by Pelo, Jesus Christ, God. And in order to think that Jesus Christ did it, he is forced to deny the value of radiocarbon dating and to ignore the historical documentation to reconduce it to the first century. In practice, he is a syndenologist like the others. The courage he lacks is that of recognizing that his affirmations that he presents as scientific leave only room for the supernatural, but he doesn't say it because he doesn't want to be laughed at as a believing scientist. In this sense, it is he who has no courage. I have the courage to say that the shroud is a medieval forgery. His former chief Baldacchini, the one who had the idea of ultraviolet, is much more courageous than him. He says openly that Jesus Christ is risen by emitting ultraviolet radiation. His chief says it. Pelo doesn't. I find this hypocrisy unbearable. In reality, it is obvious that if one takes into consideration that the image of the shroud may have been made with ultraviolet many centuries ago, it's because he already starts with the idea that the image is the result of a miracle. So I just was like, okay, well said.
What's super interesting is Otangelo tried to come back middle of your stream with
of course.
I found another expert and you haven't debunked that person because again, folks, I hate to plug my class here, but this is what we show our students in this class, that this is what the other side always does when they don't have any evidence, is they go, the Gish Gallop. Oh, well, I put up another expert, you knocked that one down. Oh, I got another one. And so it is ironic that Kent Hovind does his whack and atheist thing, but this is what we're constantly doing with the whack and apologists. Also, Tux, if you're going to do this, we should do something with the cameras because this just covers up the cameras constantly, so people can't see us because they're just seeing quotes on top of us. So,
Jay, we can't have your non-pretty self out there.
I have to say, Otangelo knows more about the science of human evolution than you do, even though you're a 2-time PhD.
Right, of course.
He knows better about the shroud than historians and those who carbon date it, because there's always a conspiracy involved on the carbon dating is false.
Yes.
Like, at what point will one stop propagating this thing and really internalize the criticism to themselves.
Right.
Not go out of your way to try and actually think, my worldview is true because a pastor said something about a stranger's life in the past that somehow convinces me a miracle took place. Therefore, the Shroud of Turin must be true. We didn't evolve. We must have been created by God somehow. Right. And the list goes on. And it's like, I've had experiences too, but I had to be able to go critical. And like I talked earlier, some people will never. And you got to give yourself a break if that becomes a problem for you. Some people will never hurdle that and actually do it. And Otangelo hasn't. It doesn't matter what crowd he's around. It doesn't matter who he's listening to. He can come around skeptics. He can go around Darth Dawkins, who abuses him worse than anyone I've ever seen.
Sure.
And I've seen this over time, and I'm thinking, why would anyone want to be around someone like that? He's vomit. Literally, the things he said is vomit. It literally is. And so I wish that there was more criticism to his own worldview and stuff, but at the end of the day, he's an apologist, and he is a fundamentalist.
Apologists are going to apologize.
Yeah.
Apologists are going to apologize.
Just to show you what he looks like real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So today, I'm actually going to be interviewing a professor who actually
Hang on
is
one sec.
100
And then,
yards or something from
Tux, there's a view back there that kind of puts us on the side of the large screen. I think like those are the ones I tend to go to. So either that or the one you said before, because it tends to free up the bottom and then still show the full screen. Go ahead. Tux is an awesome co-host. He actually works everything backstage when he gets back there, and it really helps, take a load off my hands for once.
Bots again, guys. Bots again.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll take care of it. No worries. Thanks again. Go ahead, Derek.
So what's on Restream? How is it going through Restream?
Because that just means they dropped it on another channel. They probably dropped it on the Twitch or one of the other channels. So I just got rid of it from Restream, but it's okay.
I do want to say one thing before I play again is I went out of my way to find this academic here and leading experts in the world on this topic, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter. There's really no appreciation for this kind of
Yeah, Derek, that's really what I went off for.
From him, he inspired me to do it. I thought maybe he'd want to listen to some actual scholarship and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
And no, that's what's upsetting the most on engaging with Otangelo is dude, you inspired me. You wanted critical scholar. You wanted me to dive deep into this. You wanted me to examine it. And I went to find the critical scholarship on this. And there wasn't. All it was how stupid and silly. He commented. I don't know if he has multiple fake accounts too. I'm not sure because there seems to be people who sound like him that have come in and chatted and left derogatory slants at the scholar in my chat section. Right. Things like that. And you're like, dude, it's almost like, hey, my belief's true, and by the way, nothing you can say is going to change that. And then you go out of your way to show, maybe I can show you some evidence that'll help you. And it's I said, nothing you can say will change that. Didn't you hear me, Derek? Oh man, I probably shouldn't have even began to try and even make this response because honestly, you told me that nothing would convince you practically the way that it seems to be.
Right.
So, all right, here we go.
Where the shroud is actually located right now. And that professor is Andrea Nicolotti, and he is a professor, if I may, full professor of history and Christianity and churches at the University of Turin. So his specialty in particular is on the Shroud of Turin. He's written a book, The Shroud of Turin, The History and Legends of the World's Most Famous Relic. It is in English. It has been translated nicely, so everybody can go and get the book, check it out. But also today, I'm going to be having Professor Andrew Casper, who's going to be actually translating from Italian into English. And let's hope this works out as planned. He is also an author and has a book, for those of you who haven't got it, An Artful Relic. So make sure you guys go get the books. I highly recommend them. No time wasted. Let's go to question number 1. And I'm going to try and make these questions very simple and maybe say them slow enough where Dr. Nicolotti can actually understand, and then we can come back. So the first question I have for you is the simple, obvious one that everyone wants to know. Is this really the shroud that Jesus from the first century was put in?
La risposta alla domanda.
Yeah, the response to that question is quite simple. No, it is not the real burial shroud of Jesus Christ. And that is in fact the opinion not only of myself, but most people who study it. But that does not mean that it's still not an important and interesting object to study.
I absolutely agree with you.
Derek, pause that real quick.
I just wanted to...
Yeah.
This is just making me emotional. This is what I talked to about Atangelo earlier. It's the disrespect. It's I want to ignore the hard work of these people. And what made me emotional is like, I remember the Shroud of Turin becoming a thing and there being the whole documentary on it. We were kids and then it got debunked and the whole thing. And we're not only trying to show our appreciation for the scholars, but for you who's like, I'm going to go find these people. Right, and I'm going to read the stuff and get deep in it and have these exchanges and book this thing. And it reminds me of journalists. I love David Pakman. I love a lot of the CNN or MSNBC commentators or whatever. But here's what they do. They sit at a desk. Somebody tells them, here's what the news says today. Cool. Here's clips of what's going on in the news. Cool. And they go, all right, here's what we think about what's going on today in the news, right? Right? And it's all basically opinion, commentary, very little journalism, right? You're giving us a flavor of like old school journalists, right? When we see the war people and they're like, we went to Ukraine and we're on the ground. Boom, 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 boom. There are bombs going off in the background, right? And we're here to tell you on the front lines what things are like. This is as close as we get to that in this community. Where you're like, I'm gonna go find the person who works across the street from the Shroud of Turin, right? I'm gonna get a freaking translator so you can understand what they're actually saying, right?
The level I went to make
the
this
level is what I'm trying to show people. The lengths you go to, and then they just want to go, no, all right, continue to play the clip. I just had to. It was just literally distracting me how much that type of disrespect for other people's work bothers me.
Yeah.
It's really irritating.
I would just like to add that in defense of Otangelo, comparative to what Jay just said, and shame on you, Jay, for saying it, we have the exact same thing against Mark, and we have the exact same thing against Matthew, and the exact same thing against John and Paul, that Saul guy.
Oh, the disrespect for the work that they did to pervert.
And we have the exact same thing against Peter.
Yeah, we do.
And we have the exact same thing against Amos.
But you know what? I'm going to remind y'all of what I said to Bible research tools. The difference is we're right and they're wrong. Now play the tape there.
All right.
But now it fucks with you, Tuck.
Question number 2. How do we know this is not the shroud that Jesus from the first century was put in?
So there are 3 ways that we can answer that question. The first is from the historical record. There is no testimony of the shroud that dates from before the Middle Ages. And in fact, those that do exist from the Middle Ages say that the shroud is a fake. It is not a real relic.
Pause.
Yeah.
That alone, just already there are medieval Christians and they're skeptical of this. People are like, no, this is, they're not even skeptical. They're saying, nope. This is a medieval forgery created. And guess what the church did? Anyone who studies this long enough knows they made many relics. They had Peter's pinky bone and Paul's foreskin, and like they had all these relics all over the place, validating in different regions somehow as proof and evidence for their religion and their faith. They did this, and this is what the translator, who's actually, you're hearing his voice, Andrew Casper, his expertise is in history, specifically and down to the point of the shroud being in Turin and how it was like presented and seen and all of that. He goes in and explains the church history of how relics and images, there was debates going on, all of this, and he doesn't go outright and say it in his book, but he's telling me, like, look, when you read my book, the indication and implications I'm pointing at are obvious. I'm trying to point at it from more of like a artistic side, so you're kind of seeing the value in how there's art in the church and how they had relics and things like that. But yeah, he doesn't believe that this is the Shroud of Turin or the Shroud of the first century with Jesus and stuff like that either. He's just saying he doesn't want that controversy. Nicolotti's saying, bring the heat. Nicolotti's like, I will challenge. I will bring the heat. Here's the book. Here's the evidence.
Right.
But number one is the historical record is saying this is a fake.
Right.
That's number one. Number two.
So the second response to that question involved the textile itself. The type or style of weave of the shroud is typical of the Middle Ages and does not exist back in antiquity at the time of Jesus Christ.
Oh my goodness! Oh
like
my
the
goodness!
Shroud itself is made of material that did not exist.
Smoking gun.
Like, but somehow this is Jesus' shroud. That's why I was writing in my respond email back to the guy that's a syndenologist that Nicolotti was saying is not being consistent. And I was like, I'm thinking like, are we trying to assume that Jesus came in the 1300s and then somehow like left an ultraviolet radiate, thing in the material because we know that this material wasn't first century material?
Well, it proves his miraculous nature that he left the material that hadn't yet to be right. We always say that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? So this was God's sign to us. He's like, boom, I'm going to leave this future weave on y'all real quick.
Reason number three.
And then finally, there's the scientific reason, and that is that in 1988, the shroud was carbon dated, and the results of the carbon dated verified what we already knew, which is that the shroud derives from the medieval period.
I appreciate your
So he didn't go deep into this, but this is where the conspiracy lies. I'm not going to get lost here, but multiple samples were cut, and multiple samples were carbon dated. It wasn't a single piece, and that's it. Oh, we just got one thing. There were multiple pieces in which they were testing this out. But of course, it was cut from a certain part where it's medieval stitching together. That area is what they cut. They didn't cut the actual first century parts. They only there's always some. Okay. It's just like when you talk to a Christian apologist who wants to harmonize, they don't want to allow the contradictions. So they're like, no. This may say there's two women here, and this one may say one woman, but the other one really is about one woman. And
right, they just didn't talk about the other one in that account because that wasn't the relevant detail to the story that particular gospel author was trying to tell. I mean,
but
it's awful.
At the same time,
right? Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Anyway,
Bonds. Following up on that answer is the question. Many people believe that 1988 scientific carbon dating is wrong. They say that they took the sample from a certain spot on the shroud that isn't really from the authentic shroud when they weaved it together. Is this a conspiracy made up and has no truth to it?
So I think that we can see the answer to this question kind of paralleled by what's happening with the coronavirus. So a lot of the so-called scientists that make those objections about the carbon dating are really motivated by pseudoscience. The idea that somehow the samples were switched. Or that there was actually a technical problem with the process itself. So for me, the biggest reason to reject the objections to the carbon dating is that no real scientific expert who has experience in the process of carbon dating has actually accepted the denials that are raised against the carbon dating of the shroud. And in fact, most of the people that do make those objections come from Christian audiences who are motivated by different things than scientific reasons. And in fact, there was a scientist, I believe in Lyon, France, who used to believe in the shroud, but then once he found the carbon dating results, he realized that was scientific proof that the Shroud of Turin cannot in fact be real.
Thank you once again for your response.
Should we just drop the mic?
I mean, seriously though, right?
I mean, really though, like it keeps going. It gets worse. You want to keep seeing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Common practice in the time in which this shroud may have been created. A better way to put it, is that a way that we can show that this was not really from the first century?
So there are actually a lot of different shrouds that are attributed to being the real shroud of Jesus Christ. And the Shroud of Turin that we know today is really one of the last ones after a long line of these that have existed going back to the Middle Ages. So there have been a lot of shrouds that have been worshipped or venerated as the authentic shroud in Europe, in particular in France, both before and after the emergence of the Shroud of Turin in the Middle Ages.
Overstock has the best.
I'm making money, baby.
Gotta do it.
The Shroud of Turin just simply overcame or survived, all the other shrouds that were worshipped as the authentic shroud. Many of them were destroyed during the French
religion
Revolution,
itself.
But the Shroud of Turin is the one that has emerged to this very day.
I said, like the religion itself.
Right.
Ever since it came into the hands of the Savoy, the dynastic family who owned the relic in the 1400s and onward.
When did the practice of inventing shrouds begin? Because we know the church would, I'm being funny a little, but they'd have the toe bone of Peter and then the staff of Paul, and like everywhere around the church they had relics. So when did shroud invention begin? Right?
Yeah, so among the first relics of Jesus Christ that go back to the very beginnings of Christianity, there actually was no shroud. There was, of course, relics regarded as pieces of the true cross, as well as the crown of thorns, but there was no shroud in the earliest relics. It was in the 5th and 6th centuries that we start to see testimonies to cloth relics that were believed to be associated with Jesus Christ. Some of those were associated with his death, and others with other times. But it was the 5th and 6th centuries when we start to see the first eyewitness testimonies to the shroud. We don't have any traces of the original relics from that medieval period that were regarded as the real shroud. There was, for example, one by Charlemagne, who claimed to have been seen by Charlemagne as the authentic burial cloth of Jesus, but we don't have any more traces of what those first shrouds were in the medieval period. The first ones probably arrived in the West during the Crusades, when there was a big traffic of relics coming from Constantinople and the Holy Lands. And among those relics that were transferred into the West would have been real relics, but also some that were false or were fake. So a really interesting case involves the Shroud of Cardouin, which was believed to be the real shroud up until 1933. It was believed to be real, just like the shroud, until there was a cleric who realized that there was writing on it that was in Arabic, and therefore, in fact, this Shroud of Cardouin was not a Christian relic, but was, in fact, an Arab relic. It was even believed that...
This guy knows his shit. Let me tell you something. This guy knows his shit. You're not going to hear like apologists, syndologists come out of their way to be like, oh damn, there's so many shrouds floating around, and like they're not going to
they don't tell you this. This
is really good information. So
it's unbelievable.
Worked miracles, raising the dead back to life, and so it was a little bit of an embarrassing thing that this shroud that was believed that shroud worked miracles.
They believed that not true Arabic shroud that they thought was the shroud that housed Jesus was supposedly doing miracles.
I was just sitting here wondering if the Knights Templar and all these people we hear about, if that's what they were doing, right? That they were really protecting these high value relics, and there's commerce and built up around this stuff, right? Because it's almost like what the church does now. We're sitting at the true throne of the seat of Peter, right? Yeah.
But they've been doing that for
the whole time.
1,000 plus easy years.
There's P.T. Barnum. There was a P.T. Barnum of Knights Templar, I assure you.
Realized that there was writing on it that was in Arabic, and therefore, in fact, this Shroud of Cardouin was not a Christian relic, but was, in fact, an Arab relic. It was even believed that shroud worked miracles, raising the dead back to life. And so it was a little bit of an embarrassing thing that this shroud that was believed to have miraculous powers was in fact of Muslim origin and not Christian origin. So what happened when the ecclesiastics realized that this Shroud of Cardouin was in fact not a Christian object, they immediately removed it from any kind of cult significance, and it just became a curiosity, like a museum curiosity. This same thing, however, did not happen with the Shroud of Turin.
Thank you so much. The question I have next.
I'm wanting to laugh so hard, but anyway.
Who is this person on this cloth?
Oh, yeah.
And is it just a painting? Is it drawing? Or is it a real person who's laying in the cloth that they created it from?
So I have to be a little bit cautious here because the Shroud of Turin is not open to study by people who are qualified to study it. The church actually keeps it sort of safeguarded, and so you can't actually study it directly. Therefore, what I have to say about it is conjectural only. So what we can say is we can look at...
Ha ha, we got you, Nicolotti. You can't prove it's not true, see? The damn church won't let me. The church won't let me. What do you mean we can't? Don't let those scientists touch our unfalsifiable claims.
Right.
You know, like, get out of here. What the hell's going on here?
Those who have studied the Shroud in 1978, largely American scientists and scholars who were granted access to study the Shroud directly. So what those scientists concluded in 1978 was not that the image on the shroud was painted on, but that the image you see on the surface of the cloth is a darkening or a yellowing of the cloth itself. So it is possible that there was, in fact, a pigment on the surface of the cloth that would have painted the image on, but that pigment is lost. And then what's left behind then is, in fact, that yellowing that you see on the surface of the cloth.
Wait, what do you mean?
Possibility is,
wait, pause. Is he trying to say there was no body in there at all?
I can't remember what he says in this part here.
Was, in fact, a pigment on the surface of the cloth that would have painted the image on, but that pigment is lost. And then what's left behind then is, in fact, that yellowing that you see on the surface of the cloth.
So I don't know if he's saying...
Oh, okay. I think he's saying the pigment that we've lost, and that's how we get the image, I think.
Yeah, like there may have been paint or some type of pigment there, and then that, of course,
wears
over
off.
Time,
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have that at this... You're talking about, 800-900 years, and it's been... If you read the history that's in Andrew... not only Andrea Nicolotti's, but also in Andrew Casper's book, there are wars happening. In fact, a chest that was holding it, it was catching on fire. Like, this thing's been through some crap. This shroud. Okay. This is why it's also very unique, is it's an extremely old relic. So I don't care if you think it's funky and not true. Even Andrew Casper, who's the scholar on this that's in America, he said, Derek, I don't believe it's real. But it is an awe-inspiring relic to, study and learn and see and go, wow, this thing is old. It's really cool.
Right.
When he saw it in person, it's like, wow, you're looking at the creativity of people throughout history that are obviously trying to convince people, unify their communities under this relic that they bring out once a year, sometimes more than once a year, but they bring it out like once a year to get the whole community of Christians together, and that's Christ. And like, this should be the perfect relic to convince.
Oh, so like a festival treat and stuff like that. Okay.
100%, like holy days, things like that.
Wow.
Let's give them inspiring images of Christ.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I kind of like that.
Yeah. It is kind of cool, but it's like...
It's like a Stations of the Cross or something.
It's like me admiring the Bible. I know it's ancient literature. I know it's got some horrible shit.
Do you know about the Stations of the Cross in Catholicism, where there's it's like a play you're supposed to do to celebrate, right? So this would fit into that, right? You do a festival, maybe do like the Stations of the Cross, get out the shroud, a little adoration of the shroud, right? And send you home with the holy high.
Right. And I just think this is such an awesome scholar.
So another possibility is that the coloring of the cloth is a result of a chemical reaction of some sort, or maybe even some sort of radiation or heat, some sort of natural process of coloring the surface of the cloth. We need to actually do more studies in particular to look at the depth of the coloring on the cloth, because they say that the coloring is actually very superficial. It's just on the surface, but you need to take a closer look, do more studies of the cloth itself to see whether or not that's true. So there have been attempts to try to replicate how the image would have adhered to the cloth, involving a swabbing. There have been attempts to try and replicate what and how the image would have adhered to the cloth, using as a model a living body and a bas relief for the head, both covered with the cloth. and then rubbing the fabric with a kind of brush filled with some kind of pigment. Yeah, it would be an orthographic or sort of a perspective projection of a face on the surface of the cloth. If someone can do an experiment by actually, putting some paint on their own face, then pressing a cloth against it, and what you would see is something very deformed, not at all like what we see on the Shroud of Turin. Could be that the image in the shroud comes from some sort of miracle, but that's not something that can be verified by scientific means. Could also be that some sort of radiation, like some sort of photographic process, would have been responsible for forming the image on the surface of the cloth. We can't actually come to a firm conclusion about this because we don't actually have direct access to the shroud in order to study it directly. Some believers in the shroud argue that since it is not possible to replicate today a copy identical to the original, this means that it must be the result of a supernatural event, but this is really an absurd claim. It's an impossible task to try to exactly replicate something from antiquity, just like we can't exactly replicate a Stradivarius violin or an object from ancient Egypt. If you're looking at a microscopic level, you can't actually fully exactly replicate something from the past. We can only come to sort of general conclusions about what kind of process could have been used, but to try to require modern scholars to exactly replicate the means is impossible.
It obviously is something commonly practiced, that they were making relics and saw value in them. Just like today, people stand in front of a statue of Mary. They know that that's not really Mary, but Mary comes to life in the relic, in the statue. And whether it's real or not, actually Jesus, they see value in that, which comes to Dr. Andrew Casper's book, where he talks about this as something that was practiced all throughout history, especially in Turin. So what makes your book different than Dr. Andrew Casper's book, An Artful Relic?
So my book, I started writing my book from the point of view of the history of the Shroud of Turin and not from a theological or artistic point of view. There are other scholars who have taken other points of view, like Dr. Casper, that I do not in my own. My own book talks about the history of the shrouds that go back to the medieval period, but in particular, the Shroud of Turin itself, and also all of the stories and the histories, plural, about that object. One of the things I did is I translate a lot of the earliest texts that talk about the shroud and its appearance, and all the conflicts that surrounded the Shroud of Turin throughout its history. My book also deals with the selling, how the shroud was sold to the Savoy family, the same family that became the first kings of Italy, and how therefore the shroud was for them not only an object of devotion, but was also a political object for them and their rule. I also wrote about how the court historians of the Savoy court, the Savoy family, the court historians made up an ancient history for the shroud that didn't actually exist in order to justify their claims about its importance. So even the how the church,
all the naysayers, like there were naysayers who were saying it's not true. They invented a history to the shroud.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yes, and it's a common thing to invent a past history, even if there are memories to some extent. But he obviously documents how they forged a complete history for the shroud. And in light of people are going, they made it up. But obviously you do that for political reasons.
Yes.
If you want your army and your people backing you, you got to have them unified under stuff like this. And imagine, they're already now fighting Islam. So you're dealing with people in turbans with hardcore, like, they will kill you badasses. And you have people who are trying to unify and fight against this back and forth. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Anyway.
History of the shroud and how it wasn't even an equal or balanced, even history. Sometimes it was promoted and sometimes it was not. In recent decades, there's been a huge growth of interest in the Shroud of Turin. When I was a kid, it was talked about much less. And even when I first started living in Turin, it was talked about much less.
Only two things are forever: love and Liberty Mutual.
Boom, gotta pay the bills.
Pay for what you need.
Gotta pay that busy.
Yeah, I just feel again like we're so lucky because
everything you need from a man in stock and ready for delivery.
The same way you documented that we're kind of the
wanted to-
first generation to understand not just the origin of these beliefs, but why people believe. We're sort of in this amazing time where we can answer these questions. And that's what's just so frustrating about people like Otangelo, is that they clearly don't understand the evidence. And I wanted to quickly ask you, how do you go about the balance of who to still engage with and who not? Because I'm at a point where I'm like, I've seen enough to know he just doesn't care about the evidence.
Right.
But am I premature in just cutting a person like that off and just being like, look, to me, they've proven enough that they don't care.
You will find out. You will know when you've had enough. For me, I've engaged a few times. I'm not the guy who endlessly goes back to the same old stuff. And like, if there's a pattern and it's not changing, I just don't have an interest in like repeating the same thing. And for me, it's like, okay, well, it's obvious that he's not getting it, but you know, the endless people that he goes and tells that the shroud is real. And it's not just him. There's a trend of apologists online that do this in your comment section. Cool. I'll give them something to chew on. And it's more not for people that are like Otangelo, actually. They motivated me to do this. It's not for them that I did this video. It's actually for every suffering person who has to endure the absurd apologetics that come in light of this to try and push and propagate their particulars and on and on and on, and they just don't stop. It's for them that I made that video and the other videos, and I investigated. I'm thanks to them. In fact, I'll give you another analogy, because Otangelo is in the chat, and I'm sure, you know, we're saying his name too many times in the mirror. He appears.
Right,
so
yeah, exactly, yeah.
The deal is, I know a group of people called Israel Only. These guys claim to be atheists. A lot of them, not all of them. But they are so trollish and so obnoxious. They have the Dunning-Kruger effect like I've never seen. They're anti-authoritarian. They don't care what academics have to say about anything. They don't give a shit about peer review. They don't even care about the language. None of them know Greek. None of them know Aramaic. None of them know Latin. None of them know Hebrew. And they all somehow read their English translations and come up with interpretations. I'm not going to get lost in their interpretations.
Sure.
I investigated this for years. I know.
I've heard you talk a little bit about this. Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting little, you know, niche of apologetics or whatever.
Right. But I investigated that for years, and I've had like literally academic after. What was interesting is their competition in the arguments with me spiked that interest for me to want to investigate it deeper. But as far as engaging with them directly or having anything to do with them, maybe every 6 months I am part of a group that they're in, and I ignore them most of the time. But once in a while, I'll drop a 30-minute bomb on them and just say, here's why this whole theory is stupid. And if you're anyone who's open-minded and actually want to learn, you really need to investigate from serious academics. Here's why.
Gotcha.
And then I'll break down reasons, and then they troll me in the chat endlessly. And then I go, you know what? You guys are right. You know what? Why am I fighting you? You're so right. I'm an Israel-only believer now. You guys are 100% right. Salvation is through Israel only, and I mock them back, of course. And then I move on. I don't even bother them like for another 6 to 8 months. But they have literally driven me like Otangelo has. Oh, you don't know that. This proves it. Really? Every time I investigate, what makes more sense? This exact position that I'm showing you, taking the critical, scholarly, historical approach, and here you are. You have better data that makes more sense. And so I thank people like that exist. But after a while, when you know that they're stuck, you know, that what is that? The disc that plays on the needle, and it just stays. It never escapes the needle. They're right, Jay. Remember, every time you're going to encounter them, they are right and you are wrong.
Right.
And there is no other option.
Right.
It's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
And because it's always going to be that way, the conversations at some point have to end, because you realize you're not talking to someone who's being rational, who's being open to actually learning. And at some point, you'll have to figure that out. I'm not going to make that decision for you. But for me, I realize like I can take him in bits, and then after a while, it's like, let's talk about something other than the Bible. And I can tell you about addiction. We'll have great conversations there. But we start talking about biblical stuff and going there, and it's just like repeat of the same thing. So keep that in mind. It's not just Otangelo. It's others that suffer from the same thing. And you got to kind of go, all right, I already know what this person is. Like, there's a guy who's called the Seventh Day Guy or whatever. He believes that because we as a society, live in a 7-day cycle, then we somehow are underneath the supremacy of the God who created everything in 7 days. And he believes that, it's the most absurd logic I've ever heard. But
the calendar proves God. Yeah.
The calendar proves God, and not only God, proves that everyone is subordinate to that God that created it in 7 days. So I found out, after just brief research, into Sumerian, not Samaritan.
Right.
Sumerian,
Okay.
ancient Akkadian, Gilgamesh, ancient literature, and looked in and found out that they're Inanna, the god Inanna, and some of the ancient deities in the Mesopotamian world before the Bible were using 7-day festivals because they have lunar calendars and there are other things involved in their calendar process that predate the Bible. Where did the Bible get the 7-day whole idea from? They got it from them. So I guess we're all stuck under Inanna.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the true God.
Also, she did the dying and rising thing, right? Or some accordion or something like that. Yeah, so I mean, clearly it's all a ripoff. I mean, that's kind of what we did with the Flying Man, right? It's like, well, no, like, didn't you hear Doug say that the Flying Man prophecies were before Jesus?
Right.
He flew before Christianity. I don't know what are we still talking about here, right? Like, I mean, but yeah, I love it, dude.
And Otangelo in the chat says, Derek, how again was the image made? This is like saying, how again did the universe actually come into existence? Okay. If you can't explain exactly how that happened, my explanation that I know is true to begin with is the answer.
Derek,
it's like, what?
What do you, how much are you in our little community? So you know about Pine Creek, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know about, like, say, Digital Gnosis, Danny, Nate, and Danny, Phil Talk? Do you know, like, Rebecca, Bread of Life?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, see, that, I think to really see, I think our community would love. So Rebecca's a theist, a Christian, evangelical Christian, who many of us find friendly. We really like her. She's like a Pine Creekster. She's like her and Pine Creek, and then them are kind of cool, right? And so a lot of us have interacted with her a lot. We're on her channel a lot. And we find this type of thing very frustrating with her, where she's like a young earth creationist. She's a biblical literist. You know who Sal Cordova is?
No.
All right. So he's like one of these fake science people who has some scientific background and just like tells her young earth creationism is cool because of some fancy graduate level science that nobody cares about, right? And so he's like, we're watching him as a content creator kind of frustratingly spoon feed this person we actually kind of half like, right? And this is like, we talk about her a lot in this community because we don't know what to make of this. Like, we're at the same point where she's not as irritating as Otangelo or antagonistic as Otangelo. Like, we kind of like her. She's friendly. She's pretty cool when she wants to be. She's a pleasant streamer. But still, you know, we've seen her. So, for instance, she's been on Gutsit Gibbon's channel, right? And Gutsit Gibbon did a whole thing where she just sat down for 2 hours and broke everything down for in one ear, you know, out the other. And she has a second channel called Examining Evolution, where she's always doing the, you know, the Donny standing for truth debate type of thing. So a lot of us are starting to lose our patience, I think is a fair way to put it. And so I know you're not, I don't think you're aware of some of these other content creators, which is fine.
I don't know who she is.
You focus on academics, right? You focus on scholars.
That's one of the things, like, if they haven't been in my chat, like, the only reason I know about Otangelo is because he actually had come into my private chat and stuff. And I think I've seen him on Pine Creek. I'm not sure if I saw him on Pine Creek before or not. I don't religiously watch Pine Creek either.
Right.
I watch it here and there, but I'm too busy oftentimes reading books or trying to get prepared for my next thing or editing videos or whatever. So I don't have time to, like, watch all of that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that after a while, when you realize, like, what you're going to say isn't changing their minds, and jamming it down their throat isn't going to work either. So at some point, I think you have to kind of realize, like, you know, it's not going to work.
Yes, I agree.
This video right here didn't even phase Otangelo. Cognitive dissonance set in even more.
Right.
It was like, well, prove to me how you can't recreate the image.
And the proof is, I think
explain.
this is before he appeared on Hot Program, which was his first chance to sort of give me and my one black friend the Shroud of Turin thing. And the spiel was exactly this, right? It was the exact stick that this debunks. It was, it's a miracle, and they don't understand, and no human being could have made it, and the carbon dating is wrong, right? It was the whole thing. They just never learned anything. They just doubled down, same script, and even today, you saw it today, well, it's still a bunch of debunk, and now I got this new scholar that I like, and it's just. So as of today, August 22nd, 2022, none of this has made a dent in Otangelo's video. Even rewatching this hasn't made a dent in Otangelo's, views on the thing. So to me, at that point, I'm done. Because all I'm gonna say to you is, I don't know. I'm not a Shroud of Turin expert, but you know who is? This dude. So when I see you interact with him, or I see Derek bring him to you, and it goes through the magic funnel, in one ear and out the other, I wipe my hands clean. Isn't that in the Bible? I wipe my hands clean of y'all. That's kind of where I'm at that point. And at that point, when I continue to engage, part of why I snap on Otangelo is because it's useful. I don't think Otangelo is going to be motivated by me yelling at him and telling him he's being disrespectful. But maybe one of those Christians who sees themselves as humble and whatever will go, whoa, man, these people, whoa, I never thought about that. That when I say, I don't like this theory or I don't like this fact, that wait a second, I'm telling people who spent their whole lives studying this thing that your work is irrelevant. Now, you could say it with a smiley, friendly face, but some of us are just going to finally tell you, you're insulting me and telling us that our work is completely invalid, right? Oh, okay, cool. Well, as long as we're on the same page about that, great, continue. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is.
I mean, let me address one thing here.
Sure.
I'll try to finish this here. Otangelo says, so Derek, let's have the debate. It's like, honest advice, would be this. And this is for anybody who's viewing who might check themselves and go, I'm not sounding like Otangelo. Am I like, if they're actually listening and seeing this as an example, rather than debating something, rather than you going out of your way to try and prove something or whatever, take the time, step away from the computer and jumping on YouTube streams with other people just so you can kind of float your ideas out there that really don't have academic backing, that you're not actually knowing the things, the criticisms and the critiques and understanding it in a humble way. Go read it. Back away from the computer. Stop living in the internet world for a little bit. Go read some books. Go study the material and then come back. And then I hope it would humble some people and they'd go, okay, hold up. I'm not going to be so dogmatic. Let me explain to you why I think this might be the case. That's not what I see happening here. It's like, let me go watch another YouTube video from another person who believes the Shroud is true. He probably has, if we searched his Google history, it's probably, how do we know the Shroud of Turin is true? Or how do
right,
we know
yes.
It's like, I'm going to prove that it's true kind of thing. It's
And also, you get no sympathy from former believers. We were on your side, and we paid the price. It's like, Derek, do you have any sympathy for guys that admire your build but never go to the gym?
Again, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
No. I'm not saying that they're built like you. I'm saying the guys that admire, but they go, Derek, man, don't you ever tell them, though, well, dude, you just got to work out, right?
Like I actually do have that happens sometimes, but yeah.
Right, but it's a little weird, right? Because you're just like, dude, you got to. It's not magic. Like, I went to the gym, I watch what I eat, right? I work out, I go to the gym, I lift heavy stuff, and that's how I got muscles, right? And they act like you've barred them from the gym. And you've told them they got to keep shoving fast food down their. And so all we're telling people like Otangelo, when you're talking to Jay Bundy, forget the atheist in front of you. Think about the Christian it took to get here. You're talking to somebody from 5 generations of ministers whose grandfather's a bishop, whose entire family is dogmatically fundamentalist, who went to college and then went to grad school. I always joke, I spent 3 eternities in graduate school. That is how I changed my view. So when you come to me and you say, Jay, well, if I'm really going to be convinced like you and I'm going to think like you think, well, then what do I have to do? And I go, here, you might want to start with this textbook in biology. I am as nicely telling you as I can, bro. Nobody has barred you from the gym other than you. And you're going to have to do a little bit, like you talk about with addiction, you're going to have to do a little bit of the work on your own. And in the meantime, those of us that keep telling you, well, here, if you really want to know this, here, just start here. Just start here with this little bit of work right here. We're not asking you to bench press 500 pounds. We're asking you to show up to the gym, put on some sneakers and start walking on the treadmill, right? And you go, no. Okay, well, then you don't want to be in shape. Sorry.
Right. That's the thing. At some point, you got to wash.
We have a powerful cumulative
case.
We have a powerful cumulative case.
Yes. All right, I'm going to finish this up here, and then I'm going to dip.
All right, go ahead.
Right about the scientific history of the shroud, starting in 1898 when the shroud was first photographed, and all of the scientific uses of the shroud in order to argue for or against its authenticity. Bad science, but also good science.
Thank you. Yeah, your book is a little different than Dr. Andrew Casper's, and I enjoy his because it's telling you the imagination and coming from the artistic, religious side, whereas you're talking about the history and getting into the exact of how it plays through history. You said there were people who said in history that the shroud was fake. What did they have to say about the shroud? And when did they say this? What year?
Yeah, the first documents we have are French that come from the second half of the 1300s. The first documents regard this controversy between the canons of a small church in France and their bishop, who is the first to state that the shroud is indeed a fake relic. In 1389, this bishop was the first to affirm that the shroud was being used for monetary reasons. Motivazione di lucro, quindi per guadagnare soldi, quindi sì, esatto. Yeah, for money, for reasons of money and for profit, the shroud was being displayed in this in these churches for reasons of profit. Right after the Pope, the Avignon Pope Clement VII, while he did not declare the shroud specifically a fake relic, he did prohibit the canon of that church from presenting it as a real, authentic relic. And then from the time that the Savoy got their hands on the shroud in the 1400s, there never really was any questioning of its authenticity until the French Revolution, or maybe better to say, until the age of humanism. And then there are even people from inside the church that at various points considered the shroud to be false. And in fact, one of the main ones was in fact himself a priest. One of the first medievalists, Ulysses Chevalier, was in fact himself a priest. And Ulysses Chevalier did not believe in the authenticity of the shroud.
Thank you so much. I have to ask, since you mentioned in history that some leaders in the church were saying, no, this is fake, or no, you're using this for money. And some people say, no, this is true. This is real. Where is the church at today on the relic in admiration?
I know I'm talking slow, but like he literally is Italian and he has to like translate it as
no, it's great. It's fantastic. Don't bother me at all.
Okay.
Out of Turin.
So I have a response that is a little bit of theology, but also a little bit of like church politics. From a theological position, it's a private cult, and it's not required to be a Catholic to also then believe in the authenticity of the shroud. And this is why there have been, in fact, members of the church who have taken positions against the authenticity of the shroud and also against the authenticity of other relics as well. And this is why the shroud the church in this present moment today does not affirm definitively.
Hang on, sometimes some of this is even for theological reasons. Some people, the same way Otangelo goes, God left us the shroud in a way nobody can reproduce because it's proof of his miraculous nature. Many people like myself as a Christian would say, because of God's miraculous nature, he would have never left us a shroud. Right? Because as soon as he leaves you the shroud, then it's like, again, it's this, you should not worship idols, right? And so there are a lot of people for theological reasons who go, why on earth would we want a shroud? A shroud would be something you don't need faith to believe in. So, right, a lot of people...
don't you think it's quite curious that the church itself, that is in control of this shroud, does not say whether it's authentic or not?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
You would think the church would be like, dude, the overwhelming evidence is that this is authentic. They won't even make a statement on this being authentic or not, because the church knows the history as well. So they're not about to look like idiots after saying it's authentic. And then when people go, let's test it, let's actually deal with the shroud. Not, all right, have a few nuns and priests come over here with scissors. You can't touch it. We have verified church leaders who can scissor this, and so you can carbon date these little slits here.
Right.
And you can test this. No, let's actually examine the thing.
Right.
You made a claim, let's do it. And if it comes out false, they're not caught with their britches down.
Down, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
You know?
Chain of custody. Yeah. Chain of custody. Yeah, that should have been the first words of the Gospel of Mark.
Can decide whether or not it can insist upon the cult of any relic, the shroud or otherwise, or to just simply let it to sort of let it be as it is. The church has not been equal in its position on various relics. It can insist on the veneration of certain relics while not insisting on the veneration of other relics. We're in a moment where like the fame of the relic is propagated by the church, but not really in a kind of official way. So there are there's a lot of preaching, a lot of journals, a lot of newspapers and print media that do insist on the authenticity of the shroud and kind of silence those that are against it. Depends a little bit on the different bishops of Turin and also the different popes that we've had in recent history. There have been bishops of Turin in the past that are less insistent on promoting the cult of the Shroud of Turin, and then the current bishop is much more insistent on promoting the cult. It's been the reverse for the Pope.
It's a specific cult within Christianity that practically venerates this shroud. I mean, like, they're obsessed with it.
But the suspicion of people has been that, in some sense, this is why the Otangelos of the world spend so much time in atheist community, because he's looking for at least some sort of acknowledgement, engagement that, to be quite honest, he doesn't get in Christian communities because they are so like, oh, your shroud, poop. Oh, your flat earth, poop. Right? They don't want to be associated with that. And the other thing I wanted to catch you on is, where do you think this stuff ranks with flat earth? Because for me, if you're an evolution denier, I say, to me, you're a flat earther. They're so equally untenable. There's so much overwhelming evidence against them that, to me, a young earth creationist and a flat earther are on equally just bizarro world, untenable footing. Where do you put... I won't even say that you have to feel that way about young earth creationism. That's my stance. But let's say you have a feeling about flat earth. Where do you put a Shroud of Turin apologist compared to, say, a flat earther?
I mean, it fits into the same category.
You think so? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it would, because your specialty is science, so you speak the language better. And like, when people are science deniers or people who just ignore academic consensus or actual scholarship when it comes to studying and the methodology behind coming to those conclusions, are the same people who literally dismiss everything from carbon dating to historical verifiability on when like understanding how and when the church created relics, why they created relics, what's the history of relics, what was the motivation, whether it be spiritual, political, money, control, the whole nine. All of these things play a role. When you know that historically, you look at this and you're like, you're literally, and I throw the word out there, and people who are really conspiracy theorists don't like this. But I say they're conspiracy theorists. Like, you act like that word's a bad thing because some conspiracies are real. Sure. But like, if you live your everyday life thinking, oh, conspiracy.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And it's almost worse in some sense, because it's a conspiracy and it's almost amongst the least tenable conspiracies. There are certain conspiracies that aren't that bad, like, oh, there's a collusion between lobbyists and Congress people that, they're in some sort of conspiratorial alignment that stops them from representing the interests of the public. We're like, we might be halfway to proving that, and it's perfectly reasonable, right, to me, these are
Right.
conspiracy theorists. But again, it's every single scientific discipline is wrong. You got to throw them all out. Then, the historical thing is wrong. All the church wrong. And so the church is in on the conspiracy with the scientists on this one, right? All the Christian churches and the scientists are all in the same conspiracy. We can't agree about evolution, but we're all on the same page about the Shroud of Turin, right? And we're all sending the letters back and forth. So it's just way out there in wacko land. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant because it isn't my specialty. I'm not a historicist. I don't deal with, historical relics and this type of stuff. But I say it's all the same science. And the carbon dating that they use for this is no different than the carbon dating we use for fossils or tree rings or anything else. So to me, I got to say it's all science denial, anti-reality, and we have evidence beyond, so far beyond a reasonable doubt that actually there's no such thing as a reasonable doubt anymore. You can doubt it, but that's not reasonable. So
sure. Well, these people are a lot like if they're in a grocery store and they see two publications, they say something from AP Reuters, right? Like talking about world affairs. And then right next to that is the National Enquirer or the Sun or some tabloid magazine. They're going to pick up the tabloid magazine to find out what's really going on in the world. That's the different mentality that sets up the stage for failure.
There's so many issues. It's like, I know, it's that Dunning-Kruger chart, honestly, because at first you know everything, then you hit a taste of reality and you realize how dumb you are, and you're like, oh, hold on, I don't know shit, I really don't. And then you start learning, and you start actually learning a lot of material. Then you start realizing as you learn how little you really know.
Right.
And then you have these people who come in and they know, and you're like, bro, you have not even hit the moment of humbleness.
You touched on
actually.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You just touched on something earlier that I thought was so profound, and I've used this exact example because I've been on your little panels before, and I've said, okay, I've heard Josh Bowen and Kip Davis both describe evolution, and they have done wonderful, perfectly adequate job. Literally, I got nothing to add. They described it well, right? But if we're sitting on a panel, they'll go, well, I don't know about anything about evolution because, Jay's, that's his field. And, so I'm sure he could speak to that better. And I would be like, no, you're actually good. But it just shows you their humility, right? They say, this is my area over here. That's not. Same way, I could probably say more about, biblical history or some of their area of expertise than the average bear. I could say, well, historians doubt the historicity of Moses, and there's competing ideas about which written tradition is the one preserved in the Bible, right? And they'd be like,
I would refer to them,
right?
Yeah.
And they would be like, for a layman, Jay, that's pretty accurate, right? But I'd be like, but I would never want to speak to that because I don't know a goddamn thing about that. I can't speak the language, not my experience, right? And so we all would be happy to defer to each other, even though for the most part, we can all describe each other's fields pretty accurately, right? Now, here come these apologists, and they can't describe not a single one of our stances and fields accurately, but somehow they know more about all of our fields than any of us. So they know exactly why Kip Davis is wrong, because he doesn't know about the language and the history and the proper and Bowen, oh, you think you're a specialist over here? Nah, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Jay, you an evolutionary biologist? Y'all are wrong. Oh, these origins of life people, they don't have a clue. The astrobiologist Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's a fraud, right? So, and then you're just like, they're experts in everything, even though they never studied anything.
This gets back to your question you asked me, and then I'll just hit play.
Sure, yeah.
You know when. It's you know when.
There were popes in the recent past that were much more insistent on the on promoting the cult, and then the current pope right now, the current pope, Pope Francis, is not so insistent on promoting the cult of the Shroud. This sort of attitude is a little bit self-contradicting, and I think in the end probably has the potential to damage the position of the church. The strong insistence on those within the church who do want to promote the cult of the Shroud of Turin could do damage to the faithful, who might wonder why there is such a heavy insistence on the authenticity of the Shroud when there hasn't really been enough studies to prove that is in fact the case. Yeah, so there are plenty of people inside the church that don't really hold the Shroud of Turin to be authentic, but do not say so publicly, do not do not reveal those attitudes very publicly to be in contradiction to what others might say.
What kind of backlash have you received for your work, for your book? Have you received negative people antagonistic towards your work?
The reaction has been kind of the extreme from both sides or from both directions. From academic and scholarly point of view, the book has been very well received. It has won prizes and it was published by the top premier academic press that there is in Italy. On the other side, though, the book has been heavily criticized by what we call syndenologists, who are largely those who study the Shroud from the point of view of its authenticity, and it's even resulted in the book being taken out of various Catholic and Christian bookshops. So to give an example, inside the Cathedral of Turin, where the Shroud of Turin is kept, there is a little bookshop, and every single one of the books about the Shroud that is sold in that bookshop promotes its authenticity. Yeah, and the book has been very well received because they're really...
Think about that. I'm going to stop sharing. You go watch this yourself.
I do that all the time. I say, look, I'm going to show y'all a good portion of this, and then, hey, the rest is on my channel. Derek, you've been just so gracious with your time, man. Please thank the fam for us. We appreciate it. I tell people Derek doesn't have to do what he does on his channel for us, but that he comes over here and just gives us. I said the other day, I told my boss, I said, Derek spent 3 hours making a podcast and then 7 hours on my channel talking about it. So.
I was in the chat, though.
I
mean, like, I'll hang out and just relax on the bed with the wife, and I'll play it, put the volume low and listen to you guys have fun sometimes. And you know, it's something to do as I'm calming down in the night. But like, I think we just keep pumping away at accurate scholarship,
absolutely,
science, accurate
absolutely.
This, accurate that. Don't waste endless conversations with people who are propagating BS.
Right.
Have those conversations,
right.
Engage, but then like draw a line for yourself, for your own mental health.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it can drive you insane. Dealing with honestly, like you really at some point are just like, I'm not dealing with a normal
human being. Yeah.
This is not normal thinking.
Yeah.
There's something wrong, and I don't know what to put my finger on there. I'm not going to diagnose anything.
Sure, right, exactly.
There's really something wrong at some point. So that's what I've noticed after literally interviewing like all of the major academics when it comes to biblical studies from New Testament, Old Testament, apart from apologist scholars. There's been not all of them. That's pretty
sure, broad.
A lot.
Yeah.
Even Christian ones that are like, there's a lot of problems here. It fails. This isn't true. This is a myth. This is a legend. But I still believe and have some connection or whatever. They're way sane though. They're like, and even they themselves go, I don't think I'm hallucinating. I don't think I'm
right.
They're rational. They're not irrational, spouting off copy and pasting crap from some synologist website.
Yes.
It's like something's wrong. I think everybody watching can see it. So.
Absolutely. And then also, dude, I try to tell people I'm trying to go to the next phase. I want to start making more videos. I think my community's behind me. They like watching me produce this stuff and make it and then edit it. But I'm thankful for you encouraging me. I told people, I promised them that I'll take your advice seriously. The only thing I could do is take somebody who's paved the way for me and say, show me the way, and I'll take it seriously. So I hope when people see me trying to do these things going forward and nerding out and doing more of my work and doing more science, that I'm on the Derek from Myth Vision plan, and when you get to where Derek's at, then I'll listen to you. In the meantime, go shut the fuck up and sit up in the peanut gallery.
I'm telling you, it's not just the path that I took. It's when I met Gnostic Informant, he only had like 400 subscribers, 300 subscribers.
Sure.
He's got 23, almost 24,000 subscribers now. And we met, I don't know, 8-9 months ago, maybe 10 months ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And he just took tips from me and like literally ran.
He just did it. Yeah. He was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And he followed in the footsteps, and he's into the same stuff I'm into. He has no children, so he has plenty of time to read stuff and study things I don't. But I say that to say, bring the fire you do where you get excited.
Right.
I wouldn't waste as much time.
Sure.
Do live hangouts, have fun.
Sure.
Be right to the point in these videos because you want to grab them.
Oh, with the video, absolutely. Yeah, matter of fact, no intro, no nothing, just boom, right to it. Yeah, absolutely.
In your face, just like.
Yeah.
Have you ever had someone say that we didn't evolve? Humans didn't evolve? I'm going to blow that and have it.
Right, yeah, right.
You get ads on it.
Right, because then you get,
blow that bloop apart.
Right.
Stay tuned for the series.
Yeah.
And then boom.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to title your series.
Let's do it.
And that's it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And you prove it.
Let's do it. I love it. Thank you so much. Please thank the wife and the missus and the family. Also, y'all don't know how the game is played. You hear a little bit of Eric Echo and Derek sound. That's not because it's sound quality. It's because he's moving. Yeah. He's upgrading his studio. He's in an empty house. He's still hanging with us. And when he comes back, he's going to sound better than ever in a dope new space. And you're just going to feel silly for having even said that.
I know. I've got
they
a
don't
remedy.
know, Derek.
I got a hillbilly. Derek, I've got a hillbilly remedy for you if you want.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you see my filter here? My pop filter. Okay. I tell you what you do. You take and you mark. Basically, I have a mark in here. I've got two spots right here, and you can see that there's foil right here. You take two socks. And you put foil line between those two socks, but you leave a 1-inch area open. 1-inch area open on this side, and it'll probably reduce that outgo by about half.
Oh yeah, because it's kind of doing what this is doing. It's cutting off everything except for where you need to speak to it. But he don't care. He got that YouTube money, bro.
I'm leaving like tomorrow or the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
When I get where I'm going, man, I'll be in my own studio. I'll have it all set up. But if I have any problems, then I might end up doing something like this.
Yeah. Nah, you good. I just wanted to show people that you just happen to be so comfortable here. You don't mind coming through even though you're mid-move. But they shouldn't take that as Derek don't know what he's doing. Derek's mid-leveling up. Just pay attention, y'all. Come on now.
It's all
disrespectful.
Look like Jesus, Don't tell him who I am.
Yeah, right. I don't want to. Jay, you're messing up. They're gonna see me coming. I'm trying to blow their minds with the new shit.
I got
some of you standing here will not taste death. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna get out of here.
Give us the line. We need the line. Let's everybody say it together.
Okay, so in case you forgot, or you're suffering with syndenologist cognitive dissonance, let me say it for you.
We are
vision. Yes. Oh, I feel it. Vision. Later, Derek.
Oh, all right, guys.
All right, see yourself out here. No, I'm booting you, Derek. You're the worst. You're converting too many people. You're going to atheist hell. Bye. Wait, I can't figure out which one. Derek, we're booting you. Bye. You're done. You're getting. I'm not even taking you backstage. You're kicking you out of the studio. Remove guest. You're no longer welcome here. Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourself, Derek Lambert. And by the way, all of them evolution videos you did, stop stealing my ideas.
Obama.
Stop stealing my ideas. And I seen you got like all these thousands and thousands of subscribers. That was my idea too. That was my idea. It's taking my damn audience that I don't have. Come on now. That guy's useless.
Come on, man.
Oh man, that was super fun. All right, fellas, I do have to. I gotta let this dog out, or else he's gonna. And you know what that's gonna be? Me yelling at Sam for shitting on the floor. Sam, I'm a rishi daki sarishi.
That's the first time you ever said anything that made any sense.
All right, but guys, the panel's open. I definitely wanted to invite Nidamos to come in. I would have had Nitty get in there with Derek, but we thought Derek was leaving the whole time. Derek was like, I'm going to be here for 5 minutes and then I got to go. So
I told you I was going to be on in 40 minutes, and you're like, "Oh, I won't be on that long."
Yeah.
And I came on in 40 minutes, and there he was.
Yeah. All right, you can. Yeah, let me see if you see it.
Nitty. Oh, Nitty. That's why we never have nice things.
There you go. How you doing?
Well, let's put the cartoon face here.
Oh, you going cartoon then? Oh, you going cartoon like that? See, I seen you do that, and I stepped my game up. Yeah.
Oh,
now what?
Look at that. That's so beautiful.
Nitty's out.
Nitty's got a rockin' buzz, man.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Nitty, tell us your
there.
Oh, what? This is Animes. Animes.
Ooh,
it's free.
Is that free?
Yeah, it is. Although I want the pro version because I don't like watermarks. I'm very much. I'm one of those people who you can definitely take my money just to get rid of a watermark. I got to really think about that. I spend a lot of money in life to get rid of watermarks.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Tangelo just.
Let me check something.
Oh, who wants to enjoy a good insult from Tangelo?
That actually made more sense than most of the stream. That's the Otangelo I love. When Otangelo and Rebecca say stuff like that, that's the spicy side that I really like. We'll see you later, Melody. Thanks so much for hanging out. Yeah.
So what were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you, in light of all these conversations today, how do you deal with this? Because you sort of, I guess, have developed a fun, lovable way of telling people they're dumb. So we're trying to learn about that.
What do you mean? Where do you see me tell them in a lovable way that they're dumb? What
yeah.
Jonathan, your stream, that or the video you did about Jonathan McClatchy, you went off and you started off calling him a little bit in a sly way stupid, but by the end of it you were like, this is stupid.
Thank you. And then I spliced that stream into like hot takes from each question that they actually answered from that live stream. And yeah, it's just like the hand wringing that McClatchy does to objections in order to maintain an air of not feeling stupid is frustrating. It's frustrating. And here's how I do it. Okay, so when I'm dealing with McClatchy's or Rebecca's or face-to-face with people from Campus Crusade for Christ.
There you go.
With my It's Okay to Be an Atheist sign on OSU campus. And I plan to do that this week. It should be fun. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But
sure.
What I do is I really try hard to imagine my 24-year-old self who is completely convinced that Jesus rose from the dead. Okay. And then I'm like, oh, yeah. I know how that feels. I know how it feels to have answers to all these questions. And then to have this other auxiliary answer that's like, well, we just can't know, And then that feels so deep and profound. And I think these grown-ass people are just so used to drawing from that well of it's just so profound, we'll never understand it.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on a couple things, and we don't have good visual feedback when we're using our cute cartoons.
Right.
But I think this is huge. One, that we do tend to be so awe-inspired by the deep. It's why, and the same thing happens with science, right? I'm sure part of what I've been telling the community lately is don't go down these rabbit holes that the young earth creationists send you down when they mention zinc fingers or ERVs, because really they're just sending you to learn about something you don't really need to learn about, because it's just more boring biological evidence for evolution, as you probably suspected. And you could probably, learn a new hobby or something useful with your time. And so the idea is that just because your brain's straining doesn't mean you're learning or using your time wisely. It just feels like it must be because you're thinking really hard, right? And this is what I hear you saying a lot about the deepness, right? People are just baffled by the deepness and the unanswerable questions. And sometimes somebody just has never really sat them down and said, you're right, that's a really deep, unanswerable question. You ever think maybe the answer is we don't know? And people don't spend all day wondering about this because we can't know.
That's right.
Right? And they might genuinely say, well, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, and there's two things there. One is like I try to maintain like a joy for the conversation. The fact that it's even being had, right? Like that we're talking about this and not, shooting each other about this. But also like I get like how important this is to people and to their relational structures, maybe even their income streams are coming from the claims that they're making. And so you have to walk this tightrope of,
again,
how much can
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
How much can I say to challenge this view while at the same time understand where they're coming from and enjoy them as a person? Now, when I'm doing a commentary on like my former church's shit or like the responses I got from McClatchy, I do have a level of anonymity and freedom when it's my own stream, my own channel to speak my mind.
Yes.
Right? And I can be more irreverent and frustrated with those people and those kinds of responses or the things that they're saying to the public because it's my space, right? I have governance over it. And I think most people who interact with me in person understand that I'm not going to treat you that way when we're face to face, right? Yes. I'm more upset about your idea anyway. Like, it's not you because I get being you.
Right. Totally. And, that's what I call it, the great asymmetry. We've been there. They haven't been here.
Yep, that's right. And so, yeah, that's how I've been developing and trying to cultivate my loving rebukes, as we could say.
Sure. The other thing I want to draw attention to is you highlighted on something that I wanted to touch on even more with Derek, but we'll just have to do another time. Our superpower is that we used to be believers. And again, stop talking so much about the atheist that they're looking at and tell them about the Christian it took to get there. Right? About, I was a believer, I did believe this, and this was so hard for me. This was one of the most crazy, wildest things. Man, I never thought I'd not believe this. God, my family, do you know how my family treats me for, right? They can relate to that. Now they're going, oh, you're not just some, atheist, immoral scumbag. You're like somebody like me who grew up in a church and has a Christian family and still has to, look across the table from a Christian grandma over Easter dinner. And then say, but man, this was really hard for me. Because as much as I wanted this to be true, when I looked into this or I looked into that, this is what I found. And so Derek kind of touched on it, right? But so to me, I'm always saying that's your superpower, is the fact that you used to be a Christian. And sometimes even though that's painful for you to talk about, it's a totally different way to relate as, I say, a doubting Christian, maybe talking to a questioning Christian, as versus a loyal soldier of God talking to a careless heathen, right? Like they're just totally two different conversations, right? Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that actually that draws out too is that notice how most YouTube apologists, most evangelical publications for reaching quote unquote the lost don't mention people like us, right? They have no way of getting out of the trap that we are, right?
Oh, you mean these people who really sincerely believed and really sincerely went and looked into things and then decided they just couldn't do it?
I don't think there's a single piece of Craig's literature that addresses the deconverted disciple, as it were, right? Like someone who would say that they tried to live like Jesus, as Jesus said in Luke chapter 15, right? Who hated their father and mother, who left behind and forsake opportunities for the world and, glory within, and then found themselves not believing. There is zero literature in the mainstream evangelical church dealing with people like us. Now,
that's amazing. Continue. Go ahead.
But then you get YouTube apologetics, right? That's trying to fill that gap and address skeptics and frustrated ex-devotees. But I think what those YouTube apologists are failing to do is understand us as people rather than the arguments. Well, we're kind of doing it wrong both ways, right? The YouTube apologists are trying to address the arguments as if we never believed the positive.
You're saying the counter-apologists are acting as though we were never believers when we're having an argument. We're going. You got no rational basis for your worldview. Yeah. Gotcha.
They're firing the not true Christian bullet before addressing the fact that we were Christians.
Oh, you're saying that's what the apologists are doing?
Yes.
I see. I got you.
And it makes their audience feel better, right? And
absolutely. Yeah.
Or they're not really addressing the fact that the person that they're going to counter already understands your counter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why is it that they are not able to accept your counter to what they're saying?
Mark Reed, Mark Reed was correcting me. But yeah, Mark Reed is agreeing with you that a large amount of Christians would just say you didn't really believe or you were doing Christianity. So that's sort of the counter to my saying our superpower is to tell them we were doubting believers. And what Mark Reed is saying, well, when they do that, they're just going to doubt the legitimacy of your Christianity. But again, hang on, y'all. You got to risk being offended. I'm just sorry. You got to risk being offended. You got to at that point put your foot down, look them square in the face. Hang on a second. I ain't even going to fox this. You can't even fox this. I got to be regular for this.
You're good.
Look. When they hit you with that nonsense right there, all right? That's when you're going to pull up on them. This is what we call in the hood. Pull up. You got to pull up on them. Excuse me? You telling me Wanda Priester's son wasn't a real Christian? Excuse you? Right? Because let's talk about it. What we need to talk about? The years of Catholic schooling, church every Sunday, nigga. Fuck you. Let's cut the bullshit. Here's what we gonna do. I don't like a lot of y'all flag waving phonies. So you want to play the Jay wasn't a real believer card? Here's what we gonna talk about. Just like we do in science. A lot of y'all fans of science. We appreciate that. You know who y'all the fuck take a backseat to? The motherfuckers who do science. The motherfuckers who serve science get to say, oh, you a fan? Cool. Backseat on this one. Now, same shit applies in the church. So the motherfuckers that sit in the pews on Sunday, back fucking seat. To motherfucking who? The motherfuckers that be at motherfucking Bible study, playing on the goddamn worship team for the church and the college ministry. Oh, excuse you? Oh, yeah, I worked at the church. Oh, yeah, I was the director of the after-school program and the summer camp. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and I was a community organizer on behalf of the church. I'm so glad you asked. So glad you asked. So glad you asked. Mm-hmm. You want to talk to the churches that wanted to make me ordained minister? You want me to call up the churches that wanted to make me a deacon? Ask them if I was a true Christian or not? You want to talk to Bishop Moses Prieston, my grandfather? You want to tell the bishop that I was never a true believer? What about what about his father, who was also a bishop, who said I was the theological scholar in my family? You want to tell him his great-grandson was never true? See, y'all got to risk being offended. When somebody insults you to your face, let them know they've insulted you. Mm-hmm. If you want to have that conversation, now tell me about your little bullshit. Oh, well, I watch YouTube videos. Nigga, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear about Monday through Saturday, how much time you dedicate to serving your church. Because when this nigga right here is playing drums for a church, the answer going to be 40 hours plus a week for free.
Yep.
So when your ass show up for 90 minutes on Sunday, to the back, quickly. Get behind me fast. Because guess what? Guess what funny? We could put my atheist behind on a stage with your next to your believing ass, and here's a real one that's gonna hurt. This gonna hurt real bad, Christians. This one gonna hurt real bad. Ask my current pastor who is more important to his current ministry. Who does more for his church, even as a non-believer, than your hypocritical ass? He gonna be like, I need Jason. I don't even know you. Oh, and I grew up paying tithes. So go back to my Catholic school and ask my teachers whose class won the mission. Our school, every classroom in my school at all times was always raising money for the missions. And every week it was announced which class, which homeroom raised the most money for the missions. Every other week, my class won. Ask yourself why. Because one student who had a very real job paid 10% off the top of that very real income every single paycheck he got. And since I thought my church was building a school that we didn't really need, and which was right, because that pastor ended up in jail for fraud. But, oh my God. But our school promised us 100% of every donation we made to the missions went to the missions. That's why we won, because I paid tithes. Like every true believer in my motherfucking family. So that's the conversation you need to have when these motherfuckers tell you ain't a real Christian. I'm just telling you, you got to risk being offended when somebody says something extremely offensive to your ass. But yeah, go ahead. I know you ain't going to do that. I just want to talk shit.
Oh, you're good. It drives Campus Crusade for Christ people bananas when I am able to quote the Bible faster than they can. So like when I'm dealing with believers, and they're like, oh, you must hate God. I'm like, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is true, think upon these things, and the Spirit of God will rest upon you. Philippians 4. They're just like, oh no. It really fucking bothers them. But because there's certain aspects of the Bible that I still enjoy, but I don't believe it. But
sure.
Where were we?
Don't matter.
We were talking about how I develop my persona and how I deal with people.
Yeah.
And then you were going to ask me a different question, I think.
Yeah, no, just more. I just trying to get to know you better. We're still a little new to each other.
It's true. Yeah.
But yeah, just tell me more, I guess, about your background. How did you get involved in this community? And then how did you go from, so tell me how you got involved in the community, and then take me from you got involved to this community to you decided to start your own channel and become permanently unhireable as a heathen, as a public heathen.
Well, I do have a well-paying job as a web developer currently. Though I did add to my LinkedIn profile that I am both a front-end web developer and a YouTube activist. So if people ask me about that, I will be totally transparent about it, because it is part of my public presence on the online discourse. And I'm not going to, I'm a person who believes in full identity integration. So you don't have like a job person that you are. Mm-hmm. You don't have a church person that you are. You don't have a family person that you are. You are who you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, right? So, and the fully integrated person is able to be patient, kind, empathetic, and powerful, no matter what their current set of circumstances are. No spirit required.
Sure,
right?
This is brilliant. Yeah.
So, as I've tried to adopt my full integrated personhood, I just could dismiss all these like buckets, and I didn't need God to do any of that. But anyway, so how did I get into this community? It was really the frustration that I had with the Trump ticket and in 2016. So
really? So this started years ago for you.
Well, yeah, my deconversion process actually started with, hey, I was alive in the fucking 90s, and I know Trump is a complete and utter bastard, but like people in my church are convinced that they have to vote for him to uphold biblical values. This is stupid. Like, what is wrong with you? Or no, not 2016. What was this? 2019? Yeah, 2019. And then when the election was going on and I'm watching people just have to dive in for Trump, I started seeing like YouTube suggest to me people like Owen of the Telltale Atheist, and just addressing these people who are evangelical Christians who are developing this cultus around Trump and his candidacy and how God wants to do shit in our country. I'm like, oh yeah, that's some bullshit. Like, I'm a Christian and I completely disagree with like trying to legitimize this complete and utter heathen as an authentic follower of Jesus. Like, what is wrong with people of my own faith?
Absolutely.
That they are diving in for this.
And can I say something real quick? This is how I feel about science. The one thing that makes me want to choke Christianity is the embarrassment. Is like, I joke about wishing our opponents were better. But this utter inability for them to present us a single credible real scientist in the relevant field and get anything published. Their inability to actually give us anything philosophically that can hold muster in 2022. Their complete inability to give us any shred of anything historical that would justify an ounce of any of this, right? It's just the utter depravity of all of it, and then they just ignore it. And so it's not even so much that you hate it and you don't want to believe it anymore, but it becomes just grossly embarrassing. And you almost just feel like you're being asked to give away your dignity because they won't even, muster a competent adult response to any of this. I mean, let me ask you this question flat out. Have you ever seen a debate where the theist actually won?
I
mean, I'm not in terms of scoring.
As a believing self, but like, as a believing self, I would say yes. But
since then,
no.
Yeah.
But back to how.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to distract you, but yeah,
you're good. Then I started getting video recommended. So as I was watching Telltale, I'm like, oh yeah, these Christians are fucking crazy. Like, believing that Trump is some fulfillment of prophecies, or like, that we need God to take over this country. I'm like, well, no, like the First Amendment, like when I was a Christian, I believed that the First Amendment protected me from other Christians. That like the reason that I got to enjoy my non-denominational home church fellowship was because the Catholics couldn't kill me for not taking communion their particular way. Right. Like, I had this rational belief that democratizing the conversation is good for humanity. right, is good
Yes.
for people to freely choose the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's stupid to want to enact a theocracy, even in addition to that the New Testament seems to teach that you should not be hoping for a localized believing nation. You should be eagerly ejaculating for the assumption into heaven for Jesus's world nation.
I know I do.
I know, right? Like,
well, this is what kind of got me, and I was kind of making this point.
Nationalists with a big revelation dick and be like, "Yo, bro, like Jesus wants all people, all tribes, all nations. Get out of here with your Jesus wants America shit."
Right. This is kind of the point I was trying to make with Otangelo. He never got it, and none of them ever do. But they just give us these versions of God that have absolutely nothing to do with what's presented to us in the Bible. And then, of course, they tell us that as atheists, you know, the people who are reading the book and assuming it means what it says in words, that we're just not reading it right. Right. And so it's always like, it's just a mess. But yeah, continue. Trumpist, they're doing the thing. Go ahead.
Then with Telltale and Jimmy Snow in my recommendation list, you know, I'm like, all right, the pandemic's happening. I'm still trying to follow Jesus. You know, let's figure this out. You know, oh, wait, what are these other recommended videos, right? And I was actually, during the pandemic, my church had to, because it's like my former non-denominational culty church was half conservatives and half like liberal Christians.
Sure.
So they had to walk the tightrope of how much COVID restrictions are we going to apply.
Yes.
And I think psychologically, because they limited in-person gathering, it forced my brain to lose the amount of dopamine and serotonin I got from hanging out with people that were like-minded. And as I got more and more deprivation from those, like,
do you mean because you were you still going to church at this point, but you're socially distanced in the church?
No, neither. I mean that we canceled home church in person and would do like group Zoom sessions, or like, and I hosted some of those, or our men's Bible studies that I would help lead would be like all on Zoom. And like,
so you're not having church in person anymore. You're doing it remotely now. For a while. Okay. Now, what's interesting about my experience is this is actually why I don't want to say pissed at my church, but it's where we parted ways. When the pandemic first happened, first off, they lied to me. Long story of the short is they had a meeting on a Monday when they always had their meeting. It was the day our advisor closed the campus. I canceled a bunch of gigs. The worship pastor called me after the meeting, because I called them during the meeting to say, like, what are you guys going to do about this? Because, you know, they closed the campus. They closed my lab, and then I'm going to have to cancel my gigs. And so we probably shouldn't have, you know, campus service this Thursday. And, you know, I probably shouldn't play because if there's a pandemic and my boss, because here's what happens, guys. When your boss closes the lab and says, you guys can't come in here and do science because of the pandemic, you don't want to be like, well, hey, boss, you know how you tried to keep us all out the lab to keep us safe? Well, yeah, I got COVID. How'd you get COVID? Yeah, I was on campus, that place you told us not to be, in a church playing drums. Yeah. Right, so that's the problem. So I was like, I can't do this, right? And my boss just told us campus is not a place you could be safely, so I can't be playing drums with y'all crazy asses. So anyway, they told me they hadn't really talked about COVID, didn't come up, there was no plan. So I was like, yeah, y'all need to really think about that because this is a problem. This is gonna happen, right. Then later, the pastor tried to tell me, oh, there was a plan, but you know, they just hadn't announced it yet. I was like, oh, so you mean when my friend, the worship pastor, called me right after your meeting and told me you hadn't talked about it and there was no COVID plan, he was just saying that for shits and giggles? And then later, months into the pandemic, they tried to have a meeting with me, which I thought they would have been like, yeah, thanks, Jay, good looking out, way to be concerned for us. They basically criticized me and said that if I was going to continue with the ministry, they wanted to basically know that I wouldn't be like undermining their authority. Like they criticized me for speaking out of turn because I told other people they're full of shit. Oh, okay. Well, cool. That's great. Right. So that's where they're at. But anyway, they canceled services. And for a while, they did the services remotely. So no worship team or anything, just, you know, pastors in his basement and, you know, they play a video or whatever. And then they do the sermon. And then we did all our connection groups, which are like our Bible studies. We did them all virtually. Well, then eventually they were like, oh, well, we're going to have limited in-person services. And so they were doing everybody has to wear a mask and be socially distanced. I didn't even go. I'm like, what are y'all doing? This isn't the time to do this right now. This is not, no. Our remote services were fine. You want to hear what's really fucked up? There was more attendance. There was more attendance because all of a sudden the people who really loved our church and our ministry but were out of state or they were parents of the kids who were in the church or whatever, all of a sudden they was watching. Oh, we can watch your stream. We love it. Blah, blah. They still sending the money. They was making enough money doing service remote. They bought, they were basically gifted a new building and shit. It was like crazy. It was like, just stay the fuck home. Like everything, just
Double
chill
down.
the fuck out. Yeah. But then what happened was first they started doing the connection groups in person and like they just refused to just let it be, right? And so I was like, well, I'm not going to go to connection group in person because it's not time to be meeting in person yet. What's wrong with y'all, right? And then they went back to in-person services and then they asked the worship team to come back and all this. And so that's when that's why I tell you, like, I just stopped. Like, it was like, okay, y'all go ahead and do you because I'm not going to put my life at risk because y'all don't want to pay attention. But, so I'm with you. I just wanted to throw in my own little story about how I get it and it was frustrating. But yeah, it did break a lot of the feedback.
Yeah, so when you're out of that feedback loop of those chemicals and experiences, and even, you know, I actually describe my former church as having a Bible dick energy where it's like they are like, oh, we know the scriptures. We know the original Hebrew and Greek. Oh, yeah. We can interpret this. We're going to exegete all over your face.
Yes. 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 Just yes to all of that.
Holy Spirit in the ass. Prison.
Yeah. Love
I'm gonna clip that.
Yeah, love is let his love bust a cap in your ass and say hallelujah. All right, guys, look, I gotta let this dog out, and I'm gonna listen on my tablet. This will also shut me up for a while, so you guys can actually get your thoughts out there. And I need to stand up because my back is bothering me. So I'm gonna put the tablet will have my stream on it. Tux is back, so Tux can control all the stuff and make sure everybody's good. So appreciate y'all. I will be right back here.
So as I was going through,
there's a reason why this world's going to hell.
Oh, okay. So as I was going through,
that's nice.
My dissonance
well done.
with the Holy
well
Spirit,
done, Lena.
I had stumbled upon through Telltale, I think, in the YouTube algorithm. And this is why I have a video on my channel called Algorithmic Atheism, where YouTube started recommending me both sides of the dialogue, right? And so I was a person, because of my intellectual boner for Christianity being true, I really dug, reasonable faith. And then William Lane Craig going on Capturing Christianity. Well, what do you get recommended after that? Apologia, right? Prophet of Zod, channels like those. And as I watched them and was experiencing my own dissonance of, is the Spirit really with me? Am I making this all up? Is Christianity really, really true? And watching what skeptics were talking about, I was like, damn, like they're making some really great points. Like they're thinking about this in ways that, you know, I'm not thinking about this. And oh wait, there's all these other religious texts that are contemporaneous. And that's how I eventually stumbled upon like Myth Vision and Gnostic Informant, where it's like, what's more likely now, right? That people thought a lot about these texts and created a narrative that made sense to them, given their current worldview, given their current status in the world, or that a god did it. And it seems to me that it's more of the former rather than the latter, right? That people created narratives to justify the way that their lived experience in their world, is, then God actually did it. But so I decided to start a channel because once I got to that point where like, oh shit, I'm not really sure that Jesus rose from the dead. How is it that I really came to believe that Jesus rose from the dead and that I did all the things that I did in his name? Right. So I was basically like, oh, well, a lot of social things happened to me that are kind of indicative of how cults kind of operate and how it's easy to manipulate people through these particular social methods and cognitive ways of structuring things, ways of arguing, ways of framing things of us versus them and protecting yourself and your community. And I'm like, wow, that stuff is really effective, but also leads people to very bad ideas. So I created my channel as a voice against the cultiness of a particular church in my community that preys upon weaknesses of people, that preys upon the weaknesses of our mind, the ways that we think about things, and
that sounds like the whole of Christianity.
Well, there is an overlap there, but it really creates a insulated community that doesn't listen to the voices outside of it, and I find very problematic. And so I was willing to create a YouTube channel because I want to speak out against that and help people at least at minimum step out of that community so that they can be more tolerant and empathetic people, but also to address really silly apologetics and be engaged in a wider conversation that's happening in the online space. And one of the things that I strive to do on my channel is to be the most active and empathetic and responsive YouTube atheist that you could possibly have. So if you leave a comment on one of my videos or watch one of my streams, I will make a genuine effort to comment back to you or heart it or like it or whatever to elevate the conversation and show that I'm not going to just like disengage or step aside from what you're saying, but that, oh, Derek. Yeah, this is why Derek is so great. Yeah. Anyway, that I'm not going to just let that get into the feed or the lost, notification stream that I get. I'm going to genuinely engage you and be present. So the purposes of my channel are to expose people to the culty non-denominational group that I was a part of and decode their messaging and show how they're preying upon the biases and cognitive faculties that we have, especially as younger people, to gain recruits, followers, whatever. And then also, like, on the side, I'll make shorts, I'll do open invite rooms to do kind of street epistemology type things, or I will, and the third purpose is to document my experience of reading books or dialogues that I do with my "It's Okay to Be an Atheist" sign. So yeah, that's my channel.
I agree with what Derek just said, 100%.
Thank you. Yeah, and so to give Jay some background, if he's still listening, on my "It's Okay to Be an Atheist" sign, and this is my challenge to people who listen to this stream or who are involved in this community. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to buy an 11 by 10 or 13 or whatever whiteboard, and it comes with, like, the dry erase marker and whatnot, and take it to a like Panera Bread or a coffee shop that is just like a general hotspot in your local community. Yeah. And what I want you to write on it is, "It's okay to be an atheist in 2022. Let's talk." And you're going to generally get gregarious or convicted people talking to you, or you're going to get people who really need to vent their frustrations with their faith communities to talk to you. I did this on OSU's campus at the Starbucks at the start of the school year last year. And a few people from Kentucky and other Bible Belt states came up to me and were like, "I'm so glad you're here and that you want to talk about this, because I grew up Christian, but I'm finding that I can't hold on to that anymore. And here's why." And being a sympathetic and empathetic voice to those young people was very helpful to them. I could see it in their face, in their eyes. They're like, "Oh my gosh, here's an adult, who cares about me losing my understanding of this, being willing and ready to talk to me." So that's a good thing. And I think that if Christianity is true, Christians who believe it have nothing to fear by coming up to you and talking to you, right? And so you're going to foster more dialogue with those kinds of people as well. And I think a lot of you who listen to this or are watching this are capable of doing it, and you should give it a shot.
Yeah.
How much are we fooling ourselves that the house of cards that is Christianity is starting to topple a lot faster than, say, 2 years ago? I mean, I don't think it's because of COVID or anything. I mean, you brought up a good point on why it may be falling, but it feels like to me that the foolishness of Otangelo is on full display. That clearly what he believes has been thoroughly debunked, and he continues to believe it. And it's almost like the flat earther who you see, they start making a point, they sound intelligent, they sound like they are confident, and they have the followers that are kind of truth in numbers. And then you see somebody who comes along and says, actually, this is just gibberish that he just said. And what he was talking about actually wasn't answering the question. It was talking about this thing over here, which really doesn't have anything to do with the initial question. Right. And you're seeing more and more of that with the Christian. There's without anything combative between the atheist and the Christian right now, with especially Derek's live stream today between Apologia, Kyle that asked the William Lane Craig question, and Eric Manning. You clearly see good conversation. You clearly see nothing that sounded like Jay with Otangelo earlier today. And you saw essentially four people having like-minded opinions, 2 versus 2, with almost general consensus almost every time, at least a give and take, except I would almost say Paul Gia was the one who stuck his heels in and was not going down with that tug of war on any rope. He was anchoring every single time with whatever his point was.
Right.
And what strikes me is more and more people are looking at what the atheist is stating, looking at what the apologist like Eric Manning is saying, and yes, there's more people who are cheering on Eric Manning than there are Paul Gia. I think you're seeing a lot more people going, okay, something's not right here. How come I'm agreeing with this guy and he's the atheist? How come this guy is making more sense?
Mm-hmm.
He's asking for evidence instead of faith.
Yeah.
And in the golden age of YouTube's atheist YouTubers, it's going to be you, Nitty, who bridges a lot of gaps with that wide erase board and says, hey, this is my channel, subscribe. Hey, we're going to go through this together. And guess what? If Christianity is real and it's true, did you lose me?
I'll delete my fucking videos.
And
like,
you know, if it's
yeah, like
if it's real, if it's true, I got
say,
the evidence. The empirical evidence is right here. Here it is. It's a gift. It's a gift to you. I want you to be aware of it just the same. And in my opinion, on my side of it, I am in the camp that the Bible is actually deception. It's not the word of God. It's the work of a deceiving human who convinced another human to be deceiving and then basically got people working for them. It was a Ponzi scheme using human beings in which, hey, we got these 12 guys that kind of believe this thing. Let's take it to the next level. I'm going to see this vision, and then we're going to go from there. We're going to have differing opinions, and guess what? I have a way that we can get 500 people. Network marketing, and we're at the top. All those suckers at the bottom, they're the ones who are going to bring in the cash. And guess what? You and I are gonna have a good life as a result. It's not going to be easy, but here's the template on how to do it, and we're going to hide it within. We're going to hide it within our scriptures, our quote unquote scriptures. And that's what it looks like.
I don't even think it needs to be that. Like, I think that...
It is, though. It is.
I think it is, too. I mean, I think it goes even deeper than that, but I don't want to, like, hijack the conversation. But, yeah, I think... Well, but I do want to hear what Nitty has to say about it.
Well, and the other thing, though, is, like, okay, so I just want to tell Jay the rest of my story, I guess. So I thought it necessary to create my channel to raise awareness to the culty bullshit that's happening in my particular lived experience and community. My wife and kids are still a part of the church to some extent, though maybe she might be doubting. I don't know. And I'm trying to interlock with the people who are still a part of my former group that I used to lead a men's Bible study with. And it's important to me to have this channel to exercise my freedom of speech and to hopefully demonstrate to former members that I'm not trying to rebel against God. If God exists, he's real, he will reveal himself to me in a sufficient way, and I will be more than happy to delete my channel and all of its content, especially the content against this particular church, if that happens.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Nitty, one thing before we go back to Jay. Is Paul and I were talking at Better, and I said, Paul, when you become a Christian and you have the evidence for it, it's going to be easy for me to follow. And he looked at me and he said, if I become a Christian, worry that I did it for the money.
Ooh.
Don't follow.
Yeah, I'm with him. Well, y'all, if they tell you I had a deathbed confession, I'm desperate. Go ahead.
He's like, I could Lee Strobel better than Lee Strobel.
Or I'll give you another one. I did it for the punane. Yep. I finally got the one who put it on me. She was a good woman. And look, I said, y'all, she a good woman. So look, I'm culturally Christian. I'm a liberal Christian, all right? Do I believe Jesus died for my sins? It's a very interesting idea. I really think it's metaphysically, we can't really disprove it. So I accept based on, the spiritual revelation that is good pussy I'm getting every night, that it might be the case, but if it's a little bit, look, you can't beat them, join it. If it's a little bit of a chance that is true, and that woman is going to stay with me, hey, now, you're an all-star. You know what I'm talking about? That Pine Creek theorem, y'all.
Anyway,
hey,
how
man!
I really got into this.
This makes sense!
Nice.
Anyway, how I got involved more so in the community was not until that I started getting recommended Doug's videos.
Oh, okay.
And his live streams. And so then I eventually got into poker. I appeared on a couple of Doug's streams, was like, well, fuck, I'm not sure if I believe any of this anymore. And once I got to that point, I was like, damn, like, I guess if I'm not really sure I believe it at all anymore, like, what else should I indulge myself in? And I got more into like Seth Andrews and the Atheist Experience and things like that.
Nitty, keep going. I'm just going to grab my water. It's running out. But go ahead.
And playing poker with, Tux and Doug, and further listening to Derek's backlog and Doug's backlog with going through things with like Cam and Nathan of Digital Gnosis. I am very privileged in that I work a job where I can listen to YouTube videos all day while I'm trying to work because I'm a web developer. So going through all this content and seeing, rational and valid responses to my typical Christian arguments or passages that I had my Bible hard on for, I was like, well, okay, I guess there's not really great reasons to be a Christian, so I just left it. And I think when that got paired with my experience in my former church of someone saying literally this to me, they asked me, why are you still coming to our church? And I said, well, I want community. I want social cohesion with my wife, my kids. And they said, if you don't think it's true, why even come? And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm doubting. Like, I'm now like prime atheist meat. Like, don't you want me to like stay? Like, what are you doing? Like, and I think what bothered them was the very notion that there could be evidence against Christianity, that it could possibly not be true. And that dissonance factor was so weighty for them that they just basically soft kicked me out. They're just basically like, if you just can't believe how we believe, get out of here. And I'm like, sure. Well, then fuck you. I need to find a new community, I guess. And so then I was like, maybe this group is a little culty. Maybe there's something wrong with the way I was thinking about the world. And then as soon as I got to that point, I had to go into therapy for about 4 months. And then I was like, you know what? now there's a national article calling out my church as a cult. I'm going to start my channel and just call this shit out and be involved in the YouTube community and say what I need to say.
Wow.
And when I come across new data, I'm going to say what I need to fucking say.
Yep.
And they're going to have to deal. And I'm going to pollute their Google search results until the sun comes up because they are a piece of shit cult.
There it is. There it is.
And it sounds to me like they were kind of seeing you as a spiritual leper, like within the context of their religion.
Oh yeah. Funny they know how to isolate and social distance when it comes to that particular virus they don't like. They're like, oh, you a doubter? Yeah, your ass needs to Nitty. Can you worship from home? You think by yourself, isolated from everybody else, right? Like all of a sudden they got the real epidemiology protocol. All of a sudden when it comes to isolating the doubters. But the COVID patients, nah. They want to hug and tug the COVID patients.
Nitty, if I remember correctly, you were on Bread of Life just before Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was quite a year ago, though. How long ago was...
No, that was just before Christmas, I think.
It was just before Christmas. So Cameron wants to know, where were you in your Christianity during the interview then on Bread of Life?
I had just completely left my fellowship because of that conversation. I was still trying to figure out, like, how much do I think the Christ myth is a myth and how much, Jesus as a person is a myth. I was still, I think that was before I had started, secular counseling. I'm not quite sure when that interview was. Maybe that was in January even, which would just be like, 6.5 months ago. But the YouTube community has helped me make a lot of progress socially, mentally, physiologically, just adjust to life without belief because of all the stuff that's out there and being able to be my authentic self without fear of judgment or having all these other commitments or these other beliefs that influence how I communicate, right? So
did Deepak and Doug join the that episode?
Oh my gosh, I'd have to dig that up. It was a long time ago. It was like August of 2021, maybe.
Maybe it was a year ago. I seem to remember it being closer to Thanksgiving, but
yeah, it's okay.
That's because we were playing Pilgrims and Indians, and no, I'm just kidding. Lena loves you.
Oh, thank you.
She says she loves you.
Tell YouTube Punk to YouTube Punk, check your email, bro. All right, so Nidamos, man, this story is incredible, and we got to talk about so many things because there were so many things that I wanted to touch on. But thank you for sharing. So I'm gonna hit some of the highlights quickly. One thing is the sign thing reminded me of Normal. So I used to be the president of the. Here's a mouthful for you. The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws at the Pennsylvania State University. Normal PSU.
Delicious.
Whoa. Right. So Normal, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, is like the nation's one of the nation's oldest, marijuana law reform organizations run by Keith Stroop, big famous stoner law reformer. Not to be confused with the Marijuana Policy Project that is actually run by a former Penn State student. All right. Anyway, so one of the things our thing is NORML is the acronym Normal, right? So their big motto was it's normal to smoke pot. right? That was our big thing. We had little cards. We put that up places, right? And that was sort of this effort, right? It's normal to be an atheist in 2022. That's normal's thing. It's normal to smoke pot. Because believe it or not, it's just a huge part of the conversation to have people have that, yeah, and it's finally time we talk about that, right? Like, so I definitely think this idea of, you know, and maybe even something like that, like little cards, little wallet cards you could pass out. Hey, it's normal to be an atheist in 2022. Nidamos, put your little channel and your contact information on there and just kind of, because that's how they were for us, right? We'd have these little freedom cards, right? And the freedom cards were really useful because they had your rights on it. The real idea was if you got pulled over by the cops or you got caught with some weed, you needed to like pull out your freedom card because it was going to tell you right here, shut the fuck up. Remember, you don't have to show them shit, right? Right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we'd even tell them, just give this to them, right? If you see a cop, you get pulled over, arrested, shut the fuck up, hand them this card, and then call us, right? And then I'd find you a lawyer and all that type of shit, right? Help me help you. Shut the fuck up, give them this card, call me. I think that's huge, the normalization. I also want to say, in a way, that's what I try to do as an atheist worship drummer, right? Was try to be a part of that community so that community could see an example of a normal person who they knew, who they liked, who they didn't think was a weirdo because he was part of their church, who, you know, was an evolutionary biologist and, well, didn't maybe think that the Bible should be taken literally true. And so in my own way, I was trying to normalize it, right? My thing wasn't, you know, sit in a coffee shop and set up a whiteboard. It was more like I really got to practice to make sure I'm tight for this service on Sunday. But nevertheless, it was a similar motivation, right? And then I'm there to have those, you know, very important conversations that they might not otherwise have. So you know, everybody's got to find their own way to be that, right? I also want to talk about the validity of what I think your overall approach on, you know, YouTube is with these conversations. And I want people to understand, I don't not have these super nice, pleasant conversations with people. First of all, I do try to have those, right? It's just, I have limits, right? And part of what I got frustrated about was I often saw people go beyond my limits and not get responded to appropriately. So I'm a person who thinks you should earn goodwill in a conversation. And if you keep insulting me, then I don't have to keep pretending you're not insulting me, and I don't have to keep being nice about it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I don't put up with being, like, if the last conversation I had with Bread of Life on her channel, someone...
I remember that. Yeah. I don't even know what that was about. And I didn't want to ask you because I didn't feel like you owe people an explanation. But I know somebody said something you didn't like, and then you was like, I'm done. I'm out. Bye.
Yeah. So there is, when any level of bigotry gets into the conversation, that's when the conversation should end.
Yeah, but to me, it doesn't even have to be bigotry. To me, it could just be willful ignorance, and I don't want to deal with you being willfully ignorant because, again, I find that insulting.
That's a little different. So if it's your actual interlocutor, then I think you have the freedom to be dismissive of that. But when it's in the side chat, it's like, well, depending on how much willful ignorance you're willing to tolerate from the side chat, that's on you and the person hosting.
Yeah. And people know I generally don't tolerate that.
It's really hard to walk those lines, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's going to be different for everyone.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, for that particular stream that I'm bringing up,
right.
like it got there very fast because the side chat chose an issue.
Oh, it's a line. I mean, how many times I gotta let you call me nigger 3 times?
Right.
Right. Like, no, the first time is enough, and that's that.
I think if the actual interlocutor appears to be willfully ignorant and is not understanding the evidence or the what you're presenting, then you're more than warranted to just end the conversation. But for me, like, in most of the dialogues that I've had on my channel or my appearances on other channels, I haven't encountered that as much.
Sure. Yeah.
But if I'm mastering how to have charitable and empathetic conversations, then yeah, like I hope more people comment and subscribe and boost the way that I do things so that they can. I think that most Homo sapiens can do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm extravagant in any particular way. So
Totally.
I hope that people are getting exposed.
My thing was just more to say, I want people to not think that I don't value what nice people do. It's just I realized there were so many people already doing that. I needed to do something different, right? For me.
Yeah.
For me, right? And then also, like I said, I'm really into sports entertainment, and I'm really into bad guys and heels. When I see two wrestlers, I hate them being civil. Can't stand it. I really need, as a fan, for them to believe that they want to rip each other's heads off.
Okay.
Right? I don't want to see them palling around at the diner. What are you talking about?
Let's tickle.
Yeah, like that's just not. Now, a lot of people.
Let's roll around.
A lot of people are not wrestling fans because they don't like watching grown men beat each other up on TV. I don't agree with y'all. I want to see people beat each other up. Let's be very clear about that. Violence. I want sanctioned violence, right? So I like that in my YouTube debates. If people watch my channel, I watch a lot of other people's stuff. You know my favorite YouTubers are R.M. Brown, Gin and Truth, people that are irreverent and disrespectful. Gin and Truth is not going to pull up on you and be like, hi, guys, I'd like to talk about this distinguished Christian apologist. Right. He's like, look, today's fuckface of the day that's sitting on some motherfucking bullshit, right? Like, and I'm like, yes, please.
This knuckle dragon troglodyte, Kelly Green.
Right, so that's just what entertains me. And it's also what motivated me to start my channel, because I remember something that really triggered me was, who's the guy with the long ponytail, rational skeptic generation, cosmic skeptic, something like that?
Rationality rules.
Rationality rules. There you go. I don't even think it was him. I think it was genetically modified skeptic.
Okay.
It was one of them. One of the two. Sometimes they do similar stuff. I get them confused. All right, but one of them two. Go look at it. Don't tell me it was if it was the one you checked. It was the other one. It was the other one. The other one did it. All right, one of them did a cult tier list. Go figure out who did the cult tier list. Somebody send me the link. We're gonna watch this video because we're gonna have to respond to this. This was going to be originally my very first Counter-Apologetics video. Somebody go find me this cult tier list video. Drop it to me in the Discord, and I promise you, if you do it, we're gonna make this video because this was gonna be my first ever Counter-Apologetics video, and I never made it.
It was Doomsday Cult tier list. Genetically modified skeptic did that one.
I think so. And he was talking about, he put them all. And here's what happened, y'all. He started by basically saying,
when you picture a cult.
Yeah. And then he started by, they all have superpowers, I think he gave them, right? Hang on a second.
Conducted their subway attack. Most people in Japan already regarded the group as a cult. The attack only further solidified their reputation as a... The Moonies believe humanity can only be restored to God through a Messiah, and that Moon was meant to replace Jesus because Jesus was killed before he could start.
All right, so anyway, right, I think it was this one. I'm going to watch it and make sure that's the right one. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened. This is an atheist skeptic video, right? But it had me hella triggered. Super triggered, because I was like, no, he did. And you know what? Now that I've watched so much more of him, and I've now been watching him for much longer, I realized that's because Drew loves Jesus, right? Y'all know the truth is Drew loves him some Jesus. He's the guy who goes, oh, I love Jesus, but I won't worship him. So, no true atheist, exactly. But, what he does in that video that triggered me was he said, y'all, I'm going to tell y'all all about the world's most powerful cults. But let me tell y'all right now, right away, we're excluding Christianity. All right, now look, I'm going to tell y'all, each one of these cults has superpower. I'm going to tell you where I rank the cult, and I'm going to tell you about the cult's superpower. And I'm sitting here like, I'm about to cut this man. Number one, stop telling me that thing that I grew up in that was abusive as shit, that was all about the adoration of this fictional character is not a cult. Right, Nitty? You had to realize as a grown-ass person that you grew up in some culty shit. Now, yeah, these people love me and they fed me and they clothed me, but they put me in some culty shit now. Go ahead.
I didn't grow up in it. I was re-educated.
Oh, okay. But you had to nevertheless acknowledge that this is some cult, right? This is cult. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It may be Christianity, but it's cult. Cult to cult. You know what I'm talking about? To me, that's special pleading. Oh, it's a cult unless everybody else believes it. Because they do the same thing with the delusion. Oh, it's a delusion unless it's religion. Then it's not a delusion. Well, no. What? Right? I'll tell a psychiatrist to their face that definition sitting on some bullshit.
Yeah.
How are you going to define a mental condition and say if you meet the definition of this mental condition, you don't have the mental condition because the majority of people around you have the same mental condition? Now, I don't know, but that sounds suspect to me.
Right.
So how are we going to make a cult tier list and just exclude the world's largest cult? Sitting on some bullshit. So I was mad. And I said, look, we're going to make this, we're going to redo this, and I'm going to make a whole video. And probably the reason I stopped doing it, because at the time I was going to do, I'm going to do it right now. And then it became like distant, and I was like, people are going to, what are you talking about? But now we're going to do it. I'm going to review his, shove my foot up his atheist ass, and then show y'all why Christianity needed to be at the very tippity top of that cult tier list. But speaking of what you was talking about, I want to reveal to people a brief synopsis of my arguments in that video. And my argument is going to be that Christianity has 3 superpowers. I'll never forget them, and I don't want y'all to ever. This is what this video is going to be about. And Nitty, I'm going to share the 3 superpowers with you. Number 1 is soft culting. What is soft culting? It's exactly what we're talking about. Oh, Nitty, yeah, hang on a second. Let me do this. Matter of fact, let me be very technical about this because I don't want to mess this soft culting up. Let me look up the definition of cult. Here it goes. Cult. Oh, man. Brave, you make everything difficult. Give me a definition. Okay. A cult is a religion or religious sect generally considered to be extremist or false, with its followers often living in an unconventional manner under the guidance of an authoritarian charismatic leader. Mm-hmm. Excuse me? Number 2, the followers of such a religion or sect. Okay, cool. See number 1. And number 3, a system or community of religious worship and ritual. Excuse me? What part of this does Christianity not meet? Excuse me? What? No. This shit is a cult. So what is soft culting? You get to be in a cult that meets the definition of cult, and what do we tell you? You're not in the cult. And so then what happens is you get the rail go around going, oh, them Heaven's Gate Kool-Aid drinking fools with the purple towels and the Nikes, cult. Oh, them Jim Jones people, cult. Oh, that goddamn Mormonism, cult. Oh, Catholics with their idol worships, cult. Oh, what about y'all Christians? No, this is the sophisticated religion of the intellectuals. No. Cult, get the fuck out of here. So that is soft culting. Soft culting is when you're in a cult, but you don't have to pay the consequences of what it means to be in a cult because everybody's happy to pretend that your cult is not a cult. Soft culting, right? Because when we think of cult, this is what I'm trying to get there. There's soft culting and there's hard culting. When you think of cult, you think of hard culting. You think of they cut you off from your family. They make you take poison. They make you get married to multiple people, right? So all Christianity does is be a little bit more mild than that, right?
Yeah, and I tell people in my immediate community and context that, especially if I ever interact with people who are a part of the church or are considering leaving, I say that when critics...
Hang on a sec. Yes, Mark Reed, Catholics are Christians. I don't want to offend Catholics. I was just more parroting the argument. But yes, I went to Catholic school. I 100% consider Catholics Christians. But continue.
When people in this community that we live in communicate that you guys are a cult, what they're trying to say is that while you lack a unified charismatic leader. While you lack these other features that are definition of a cult, you still possess a majority of features that make you a cult, right? That we're talking past each other. You think we're saying that your guys are going to drink Kool-Aid and kill yourselves, next Sunday.
Right.
We think you're saying we want to use sociological and psychological methods to keep people doing what we want them to do, that doesn't necessarily fit a particular text or narrative that we have that is actually worthy of belief. That is what secular people mean is a cult, is people married to an ideology and belief structure that doesn't correctly map onto reality.
So guys, please understand my frustration with the video. It was not that I'm saying I don't like genetically modified skeptic. I think he's great. He's on my playlist that when a doubting Christian comes to me and says, Jay, I'm doubting or questioning this, that, I go to him, right? Because I think these are the gateway people, genetically modified skeptic, the other person, rationality rules, right? They're very tightly produced, very well scripted, very friendly, very reasonable, right? You're not going to take a person you was in church with last Sunday and send them to Pine Creek. You got to really get comfortable with them first, right? But you might send them genetically modified skeptic or something, right? Because it's very approachable and it's almost like Christian forward, right? It's meant to be consumed by people who are like in the grips of it right now, right? Mm-hmm. So what disappointed me about that was, bro, you're the guy we count on them to give them these hard truths in a friendly face, right? And the first thing you do is, hey, let me tell you about my cult tier list. Don't worry, Christians, I'm excluding y'all. Y'all don't count. Y'all good. And I'm like, man, come on. I'm a little disappointed here because I would have wanted you to be the one that gently explained to them why they are a cult or why they should be at the top of the cult list, or at least give a little bit more, y'all are a cult, but y'all are a cult in these particular ways, and I just want to focus on somebody else or something. But to me, he just gave them a pass. He basically came out and said, I'm not going to talk about any of the major religions that you guys might think of as cults, but, oh, here we go, right? In other words, he fed the apologetic to the apologist. And that's what irritated. Now, here's the second power. Now, remember the first superpower, soft culting. You would admit, though, Nitty, right? I think you're agreeing with that. That's pretty powerful, right? If you get to do all the cult stuff, but then you don't pay the social cost or the weirdness of it because we tell you you're not in a cult, right? So that's soft culting. Yep. The second superpower is dominion. Dominion literally is what I think of as power. Y'all control the power structures of the map. So the majority of the congressional power people share your delusion. The majority of the people... Man. There you go. Hey, man. This makes sense, right? So, in other words, the money, everybody, believer or not believer, when you pull out your money, it says, in God we trust, right? So it makes you believe that even your government says, hey, this God thing, especially if you God like the people that founded this country love God, you're probably good. You see what I'm saying? And it gives you this dominion, right? It's okay for teachers to pray in class. And we know mostly they only tend to do that with Christian prayers, right? It's okay for coach to make everybody bend at a knee at the 50-yard line and invoke the name of Jesus, right? It's okay to send patriotic songs about how God favored us. You see what I'm saying? So it's dominion. Your religion is tightly woven into the power structure of society in such a way that you don't even recognize the extreme privilege that gives your cult over other cults. Again, it allows you to sort of disappear in the cultiness because it's part of the government. It's part of the official protocol. Everybody around my office wears a cross necklace or whatever, right? So you have dominion. This social dominion is really a superpower for your cult because Muslims look weird, right? When Muslim shows up to a corporate America job, just in their normal Muslim guard, everybody looking at them crazy, right?
I'm haram.
Yeah. Oh, wait. What you mean? Wait, bro, we in the middle of the conference room. So you mean in the middle of the conference room, you got to pray to Mecca right now? You got to whip out the carpet right now and look at a Pacific way and pray in that direction right now?
There is an argument to be made that they just wouldn't take those types of jobs that would interfere with.
Absolutely, right. But in my thought experiment, I'm just trying to show how weird it would be in this situation, right? But the people who come in with the cross necklace on and, oh, God bless you this morning, Peggy, that's perfectly normal, right? Like, you know, and they sit around the conference room, oh, talk about my church, that's just fine. Nobody looks at them like they're weird. So dominion is the second. So if we got soft culting, you got dominion. Of course, they're all related. And the third one is denominationalism. And yes, I made these fucking things up. I was trying to think of how to make words for these things that I'm feeling and observing, but I didn't know how to verbalize, so I had to make up some verbiage. You know what I'm talking about? All right, so we got soft culting. Yeah, I made that up. Dominion, probably using it wrong, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And then the third superpower is denominationalism. Now, a lot of us talk about what? Cafe Christianity, right? You can pick and choose. I like this belief. I don't like that belief. I kind of like this love all your neighbors stuff. I don't really like the anti-gay stuff. I ain't really that New Testament with mine. You know what I mean? Right? And so I'm a young earth creationist. Cool. I'm an old earth creationist. So you know what I'm talking about when I say cafe Christianity, right? For people that don't know in the audience, we just talk about picking and choosing. I'm making sure the panel, y'all cool with that, right? Y'all know cafe Christianity, right? Buffet Christianity, James Apperson, Nidimus, you're good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Denominationalism.
I gotta dip though because I'm getting tired.
Oh, all right, Nidimus, I'm gonna let you go.
You're good. I'll still lurk for a while.
Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming through. All right, but James, so here's the thing with denominationalism. You could do that with any religion, right? You could be a pick and choose Buddhist, right? Yep. You could be a pick and choose Hindu. Pick and choose any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
The difference is there probably isn't a congregation willing to accept and embrace and blend with your belief. Now, that doesn't mean that every Christian goes to a church that's a perfect one-on-one alignment with exactly everything they believe, but there's close enough on a lot of stuff, right, that they can find somewhere they want to go. If I'm a young earth person, I could go to this church. If I'm a liberal person, I go to that church. If I'm really educated, I go to the hoity-toity Presbyterian church. And if I think I'm, I need a little more stomp and hand clapping, I'm going to go to my Pentecostal church, right? And if I don't like the Pentecostal, if I don't like First Baptist, I'm going to Second Baptist. If I don't like Second Baptist, I'm going to Third Baptist. If I don't like Third Baptist, I'm going over to Second Presbyterian. You see what I'm saying? Now, you could drive, I say, from a lot of places in America, you take any, point at your house and just drive 10 miles out in any direction. You're going to pass 7 Starbucks and 12 churches. So there's more options with fucking churches than there is coffee.
Right.
Now, you could believe all that as you want as a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist, but at least, and again, I know we're speaking about a very American perspective, right? But at least in this American context, right, it's very hard for you to nitpick which particular brand of mosque you want to go to or Hindu temple. First off, you lucky if there's even one in driving distance of where you live, to be honest with you, right?
Right. And
if there isn't 3 of them. And if there is 3 of them, ain't really going to be that much difference between the 3 of them. Right? So it's not a superpower, because I want people to be critical about this. I'm not saying you can't pick and choose your beliefs in any faith. What I'm saying is the difference is that in Christianity, you have such a huge user base with so many, niches and types of churches that you can find a congregation in a community that supports your particular version of cafe Christianity. And that's why I call it denominationalism, because it's really about having all these denominations that are very active and vibrant and large enough, and then you can pick and choose that. So then you get to pick and choose your faith, but you have a whole support system for your a la carte Christianity. So that's my superpower list: soft culting, dominion, denominationalism. Turn it over to you for your thoughts on that.
I mean, I like that list. You know, power, privilege, and convenience is what I would call it.
Power, privilege, and convenience. Somebody give me that power, privilege, and convenience summary. But no, that is really it, right? I'm trying to give it some, some terms that help us maybe think about where they come from. But you're right. It is the power, right, would be the dominion, right? It's the same thing. The power, the privilege over yours, right? We don't say that yours is a cult because everybody's like this. So there's the privilege and the convenience. Oh, it's just folks that believe just like you right on down the road, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'd say that's a great summary. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a thing, but what are we going to do with that? What do you think we should do with that?
Well, honestly, what I thought I should do with it is make that video and say, here's why I think this video that says Christianity isn't a cult is wrong. Let's just stick with like I looked up, the very basic definitions of cult. And I'm going to just keep it like that. And I'm not going to give them any sort of special pleading and say they're not a cult. And then I'm going to talk about how these three superpowers contribute to this continued illusion that it's not a cult. Because, again, this is all chinks in the armor. I want one chink in the armor to be science. I want one chink in the armor to just be, we just have a better way to come up with explanations. And y'all ain't offering us a goddamn thing.
Right.
I want another chink in the armor to be ridicule. Did y'all think people were going to think you were great people because you're a Christian? Did y'all think we were going to praise you because of your faith? Oh, no, we're going to tell you that you silly as hell for believing this kind of magic nonsense and the Jewish blood magic. We think that's totally absurd. Oh, praise you for faith. No, you must not have heard us. Faith is the most dishonest reason possible to believe something, right? Because you want them to now feel that and go sit with that, right?
Right. Patton Oswalt was saying that too in his skit. He's like, people want you to respect beliefs. He's like, we do not respect beliefs. He said you have to acknowledge beliefs. You have to say, okay, I acknowledge that you believe that, but then you need to be able to say, that is the most ridiculous fucking shit I've ever heard in my life. That's what they need to hear from us, not, oh, okay. In fact, Penn Jillette continues the thought with his video called Tolerance is Condescension. He's like, when you tell these people that, that's just what you believe, you're on your own spiritual path and all that stuff, he said, that's how you talk to a small child. That is not how you talk to an adult. So if we want these people to grow up and see themselves as fellow adults and to think as fellow adults, then we have to treat them as such. We have to say, okay, when you're acting like a child, I'm going to treat you like a child. Right. There is a rewards program if you're going to behave better too.
Right. And so there's a couple things. So right. So first pebble, science. And they're in no order. Another pebble, ridicule, right? Another pebble, cult.
Yep.
Megan, no. I understand. You're a Christian. I understand. Evangelical, Bible believing, Jesus died for your sins, and you're in a cult.
Yep.
No, Jay, but mine is different. I get it. Okay, bye, cool. I know, everybody believes, cool. Cult. Go sit with that. Because now I'm going to force you to decide, do you want to stay Jesus-y if everybody's going to tell you you're in a cult, or do you want to not be in a cult? Because we're not going to give you both. You don't get to say, I'm in the cult, respect my cult lead, but don't tell me I'm in a cult. I ain't going to do that. Right. You might go somewhere else and they're going to tell you that, but don't come around here because I'm going to tell you right now, you're in a cult. Right? And again, guys, you guys think that there's no method to the madness, but this is what I was able to do with my church friends. I would joke with my non-Christian friends. They'd say, Jay, I don't get why you're always spending time with your church friends. Why are you always hanging out with them? And I would look at my critical friends and I just go, you're not about that cult. I'd be like, you ain't about that cult life. Y'all don't know. Shut up. We having a good time. You ain't about that cult life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I meant that very literally. What I actually meant was I have fun with my Christian church friends. And part of it is because we're having a great time. You know why part of we're having a great time? Because they're a cult. Yeah, that means they all love each other. They be in community with each other. We be hanging out with each other 24/7. Matter of fact, remember the story I told? We had to move a person. And instead of calling up, critical friends, hey, bro, I'm really trying to move. I got a lot of shit to move. Could y'all come help me move? See, it's kind of a bad day. All right, let me call my other critical friend. My back is kind of hurting. Can you help me move? My dog's cat's turtle has to go to the vet. Right? Right? But what happens when you call your Jesus cult friends? Oh, yeah, we coming. Oh, yeah, we all gonna be there. Matter of fact, my wife took off work early today. Yeah, she wanted to get home and bake some stuff and make some stuff to make sure we got some cookies and everything for everybody. Do you need anything else? Oh, you said, what'd you say? You said 20 other people are gonna be there to help you move. Oh, so you don't really need our help. Boy, stop you. Boy, look at you trying to be crazy. We know, Gene, we know you being so graceful. We know you just trying to help us, but Gene, come on, you crazy boy. You know we ain't gonna help you move without us. We don't care if it's 20 or 30 people. We're gonna come. We're gonna help make sure, because the more hands that help, the lighter the load for everybody. Amen, hallelujah. Yeah, we'll see you there, right? Ain't no ounce of them looking for a way out of helping you move.
Yeah.
None of them. They're all voluntary. Yeah, we gonna be there. We literally it was fun. It was just fun. I don't know how to explain it. I never had moving be fun till I moved with all my Jesus friends. I'm just keeping it real with you. It was fun. We got together. Really wasn't nothing heavy. Oh, is this couch heavy? Oh, yeah. So everybody grab a hand. Well, when you put as many men on the couch as can fit carrying the couch, magic happens. It's not heavy anymore.
Yep.
When there's 8 of you carrying the couch, magically, it literally isn't that heavy anymore. So you carry the couch, it ain't really that heavy. You put it on the edge of the truck, a bunch of y'all push it slides back, and then you sit there and chit-chat for another 20 minutes. Oh, yeah, could you help us? Oh, yeah, here, let me help you with that box. Okay, well, guess what? Since there's about 30 of us here, that's all about the work anybody does. Literally, everybody ends up helping grab a thing or two, and then we just have a pizza party and chill.
Yeah.
So if we can make moving that fun, imagine what we do when we go out in the woods for a weekend and we rent a whole big property to ourselves and we got all these cabins and we having worship services and campfires and we chilling and eating and we playing volleyball and we having a good ass time. So I would tell my friends, you ain't about that cult life. Hint, hint. I am. I'm having a good ass time. Y'all boring as shit. We having fun. We going on trips. Right? We getting together. We kicking it. My church friends, I'll be at home watching football on Saturday.
Yeah.
No, but no damn church friends. Jay, you better get over to this house. We watching the game. Yeah, man. We having chips. We ordering pizza, and we drinking beer. You know we drinking beer, man. Oh yeah. Matter of fact, we might go down in the basement and just jam at halftime. You want to just go downstairs in the basement and just jam at yeah, okay. Right? That's how church friends really be.
That's awesome.
Do you know the girls be there? You know, pretty girls in there, they don't even know how football works. I had the church gave me kudos one time because I explained an interception to a girl. They don't care about the football. They just there to hang out, drink beer, and be with their church friends. So I mean it, like cult life is fun if you are about that cult life. But it was really a powerful thing within the church because I'd say the same thing. Right? Those people that knew me and say, Jay, why you do all this with us if you don't? But bro, you know I'm about that cult life, bro. You know y'all be having a good time. What y'all think I'm gonna let y'all do this Jesus cult shit without me? Come on, bro. When we going to the trip, bro? Let's roast some marshmallows. Come on now. We having a good ass time up in here, right? And so they would hear me say it and they could kind of chuckle it off because I'm not saying it with hatred. I'm just saying I personally think we're like a Jesus cult. And I would tell them, I think that's the best part about y'all. This church started from like 60 families that moved here from Iowa. Y'all just picked up y'all whole life and just decided you was going to plant this church in Michigan. So you moved to a different part of the country. No jobs, no houses, no nothing. All y'all had was each other and just a vision for this church. And we'll figure it out when we get there. I'm like, that's incredible. That's incredible. Y'all not no church. No little regular old church where everybody just showed up to the easiest place that happens to be down the river. Like, no, y'all hardcore. Like, y'all the hardcore with the hardcore. Y'all, so I be telling them, like, no, y'all are a Jesus cult. And you say that shit with some pride, goddammit. You know what I'm saying? But my point is, if you're in and you're not an outsider, you could even make them think about that in a way they're not going to hate you for it. It does kind of let them show up, well, yeah, we do actually put a lot more of ourselves in this than other people. And that is what, and again, y'all, that's what's fun for them. Y'all don't see the adventure they're on. A lot of them, they were just college kids. They was in different parts of the state. They ain't had no money. They ain't know what they was going to do when they finished school. They ain't had no jobs. And they were just like, nah, I'm going to just follow this charismatic leader out to Michigan. Yeah, we going to play in a church in Michigan. So they just came out. And then so-and-so was like, from the church was like, oh, I could use a babysitter for a while. So look, we just got here to Michigan. We between jobs. So you sit here in the new house we just bought. And matter of fact, just stay with us. Just stay. Yeah, you ain't got the place. Yeah, just stay with us. And so now they staying in this big ass house with this really nice family, right? They chilling, got a job. They got all types of career options in front of them. You see what I'm saying? But they loving their church experience. They're on the adventure of a fucking lifetime. Right? All hope in Jesus, and everything is just working out like magic. So you got to be willing to get in there and accept that that's really where they're at and see the beauty of it in a sense, right? But then be able to just be honest with yourself about like, oh yeah, y'all definitely a cult. That's the best part about y'all. But y'all definitely a cult. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I heard something go off back here. I had to look and see who it was. I think Tux is back here, but Tux can let himself in. Tux, that you? You back here?
Yeah, I'm back here, but my internet sucks. So
okay. That's what's going on. So it was you
turned off the video, and I'm tired, about to hit the hay. And you were just on a roll. There was an accumulative case of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I got to make that video, man, about my Christianity's superpowers. Mark Reed said, tell them they were indoctrinated. They hate the word, but that is just the description of what it is. Yes, Mark, I feel like these words, cult, indoctrination, and Lena, the superstar of the comment section, also brought up delusion. And I say the same thing. You could just look up the word delusion. It's like the strongly held belief, contrary to evidence, held in the face of all reasonable, whatever. And you'll be like, yep, this is religion. And then depending on whose definition you ask, or if you pull up one of them silly psychiatric DSM whatever, it'll be like, except in the case of a religion that's common. It's like, oh my goodness.
Right.
Hey, 2 things before I go. James, I'm off tomorrow, and I have some time that we can practice getting our streams with audio and video, everything.
Oh, dude, I meant to ask Derek to tell you guys exactly what he did. I think he shared the tab thing. I also want to let you guys know.
It's not the tab. I'm telling you.
You've tried all that. You don't think it's that?
It's piss poor software that's just not working with each other, and basically, I think there's a software that's a bridge, and setting that up is just, it's not very intuitive.
What do you, do you think Derek had it set up?
I don't know what it is. There is something to do with setting up a, in my system preferences, I got to go to.
Yeah. Oh, you mean for your OBS setup. Software. Yeah.
Yeah. For my software, I got to set up the OBS, and then I need some sort of audio bridge.
Okay, here's the thing. You got to look into
setting up that audio bridge is.
Yeah, you got to look in a voice meter.
The 3 or 4 times I've used it, I've attempted it. It's been a fail.
Yeah, you got to use voice meter.
Anything.
Voice meter. Yeah, probably with your setup, you could get away with just banana. I don't like it because it caused me trippy stuff. No, you got to. It's a software. It's a program you got to download. Because what it'll do is, a lot of times what happens is your devices take exclusive control over your stuff. So to give you an example, your microphone comes in through a USB port, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have what's called an audio driver that basically takes that data and translates it and figures out how to encode sound, right? But your program takes control of that. So when OBS says, oh, you want to use your microphone through your USB as your microphone source, cool, great. No problem. So you use it, blah, 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 it's working. Well, as soon as you now go into Restream or Zoom or something like else, either all types of magic has to happen that causes bad things to happen, or it just won't be there. It's the same way a lot of times you can't use your camera more than one place at a time. Now, some softwares like Discord and places like that have figured it out, but that's because they do their own advanced super processing that like handles that stuff. So for the most part, even if you really dig through your system settings, there's even one usually called like allow programs to take exclusive control over this device or something like that. And you can check that and uncheck that. But that's what's happening. It's kind of the default norm is that one program, one device. Even my setup on my main production computer in front of me, everything's on a separate mix. The computer audio comes out one stereo channel on its own, and Restream comes out another one on its own, and then Discord comes out another one on its own, and then my soundboard comes out another one on its own. Now I can do that because I've got a 48 channel